not, I'll give him a call.
All right, he's,
Got a haircut, Jamie.
And I was looking.
Looks good.
Okay.
There's Olga.
where's
I'm gonna bring her in. And
Michael and Olga are both there.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Olga.
Jamie, do you
good
want to
evening,
direct him,
everybody?
do you want to direct him to the agenda online, maybe? That's what I used.
Do you want to wait for Joe before we get started?
Yeah, I think that'd be.
He's there. Jaime, he's there.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
okay, we're good.
Okay. Then I guess we can get started.
Yeah. All right. Let me just move some things around here. Okay. So, do you want to go ahead, Marlene?
Yes. Yep. Good evening and welcome to the Village of Ossining Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting of May 10th, 2022. Due to the public health and safety concerns, the board is meeting via video conference using the Zoom platform in accordance with the governor's orders. There is no public participation in person tonight. Rather, the public can watch the live meeting online through Zoom. Notice of tonight's meeting was published as required and posted on the village website. The web notice included instructions for members of the public to access the meeting and participate in any public hearings. Comments will only be taken during the public hearing portion of the meeting as usual. In order to participate, please do the following. Members of the public attending online via the Zoom app may use the raise hand feature at the appropriate time if you would like to make a comment. That feature is located at the bottom of the screen, and those attending via telephone can press the *9. The meeting host will see your hand is raised or that you have pressed *9 and will unmute those waiting one at a time so they can speak. Lastly, comments can be emailed during the meeting to Jaime Martinez, and that's JMartinez@villageofossining.org. Any written comments will be read into the record. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and a video and transcript will be provided at a later date. There are a couple of ground rules. In order to keep the meeting orderly and ensure we get a clear recording, please follow the ground rules. When you are given access to speak, please state your name and address. If you are speaking during the public hearing, please limit the comments to the matter which is the subject of the hearing. If any speaker is inappropriate, they will be immediately cut off. To the board members, please mute yourselves when you are not speaking. Also to the board members, I will call on you one at a time to avoid anyone speaking at once. If you wish to speak, when I'm not calling you, again, you may raise your hand or you may use the raise hand function or literally raise your hand. We will use roll call voting for purposes of the board motions. I want to thank everyone as we continue to go through this platform. For the benefit of the record, we are going to do a roll call to kick things off. So when I say your name, please indicate that you are present.
Put the light on, and that's what I'll do.
Okay. Marlene Cheatham, I'm chair and I'm present. George Bailing, I see George is on. I don't know if he could hear me.
Do you want Linda to do the roll call? I know Amanda used to do the roll call.
Yes, Linda can do the roll call if she'd like.
All right, Marlene Cheatham,
Present.
George Bailing.
We see
George,
him.
okay. Bob DeReo,
Present.
Mark Goresny,
Present.
Kyle Beckley,
Present.
Olga Montez, Olga, you're muted.
Present.
Michael Spall.
Present.
And Planning Director Jaime Martinez. Building Inspector Joe Agostinelli.
Present.
And I'm Linda Whitehead, Land Use Council, present. And Jamie Kane, Zoning Board Secretary.
We do have George Bailing here on the line. I think he wasn't here when you.
I
called.
know I said George.
Oh, okay.
We did say George. We did not hear him say here.
I didn't hear him, yeah, but I see him down there, so.
Yep.
George, can you hear us?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't hear
All right.
anybody, though.
Okay, so let us get started.
I don't hear anybody.
We hear you,
Uh-oh.
George.
So approval of the minutes for the March 8th, 2022 and April 12th, 2022 meetings. Is this the right one? Yes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March and the April meetings?
So moved for both.
And may I have a second?
Second for both.
Okay, if there is no objection, the motion will be adopted by unanimous consent. And since there is no objection, we approve the minutes for both the March 8th, 2022 minutes and the April 12th, 2022 meetings.
Can you hear me?
On that.
Hello?
Yes.
George,
Motion carried. Yes, George, we can hear you.
I don't,
you hear us okay, George?
I don't think he can
So-
hear us.
Right. So the new business of the board, starting with ZBA 12/2022, which is 63 South Highland Avenue. John Carbone is the owner.
Yeah, let me give you a little breakdown about this project first before we bring in the architect, Steve Cassini. So this project is to put a new apartment in the basement, as well as 2 parking spaces in front of the property. Under the current code, it's subject to both habitable and livable spaces. So the habitable space requirements for studio apartments is something like 450 feet, which this does meet, but it does not meet the livable requirements, which are 800 square feet, regardless of the apartment size. So whether it's a studio or a 3-bedroom apartment, it still needs to meet that minimum of 800 square feet, which is kind of a weird quirk in the code. So they're coming in for a variance to that, as well as the ability to put parking in the front of the property. We also have listed a couple of other items, including the coverage and building coverage, but I don't think that the impervious coverage is actually needed here because there's no change, and they had that granted previously. And they're not with this work. I don't believe that they're increasing any impervious surface. Joe, do you recall whether or not this, I guess we'll ask the architect, but I thought that this was to remain like some sort of porous paver system here and not be.
Yeah, I think that was the difference, is that they're gonna do a porous paver there, where the previous one, I think it was blacktop.
Yeah, but the applicant can explain better. This was approved in the past.
Right.
Partially, so the approval for the parking in the front of the property was approved, which would have allowed this to go forward, as well as the site plan. But the change now is just that the approvals lapsed over time, and so they're coming back for what is essentially the same project.
So this was approved back in 2017?
Yeah, I believe though it was approved, I think what they applied at that time was for parking in the front yard and maybe impervious surface, but I don't think that they applied at that time for the size of the apartment, because that wasn't proposed to the board at the time in 2017.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Did
Okay.
they apply? Do you remember, Joe, if they applied for the site plan as well at that point?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing they applied for was for the parking in the front yard, because that was the only thing that was being proposed. There was no discussion about the apartment at the time.
Okay. All right, so Steve Vicini has dropped off. I don't know what happened, so he was here about a second ago, so I imagine he's just having a connection issue, and he will be back here in a moment, so. So maybe you want to give him a, there he is, all right.
Is he on?
Yeah, Steve.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I was able to bring
Yes.
you in to allow you to talk, but I'm trying to promote you to panelist, and it's not working, so I'm not sure why. Are you on your phone or are you on a computer?
Hello? And
Hello?
my video is not there for some reason.
There
Is
you
it
go.
working now? There I am. Hi. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Good evening. So I was listening to all of the comments. Before I begin, is there any, whether I cut out the last 30 seconds, were there any questions that I need to answer quickly based on what you just discussed, or should I start presenting?
You can start presenting.
Okay, thank you. So yes, accurately, there wouldn't be an impervious variance required. And I'll go back to sharing, I guess, my screen.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
I hear that. I don't know if that's someone else in there, but
Not entered any
so this
number.
is the site
Please
plan.
re-enter your meeting
You're
ID.
correct. There would be previous pavers installed. So do you hear that, or is it just me? There's a computer.
No, we
screen.
can,
Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
That is George's camera.
yes.
You can hear that. Okay.
George, you need to mute.
I think he did.
He's muted.
I'll just keep plowing through, or should I wait?
Yes.
Keep plowing through. That
No,
might
go
happen
ahead.
a couple more times, but you know.
Previous, there would be no variance required.
So there's no variance for the,
Hi. Okay. Thank you. There's no variance required for impervious. So yes, and correctly speaking, there was the discussion of for the parking in the front yard. I know there are other such variances that because of the imperfect nature of the lot and it's predating some of the zoning. I don't know if any of those need to be discussed. I think Mr. Martinez, you mentioned that it probably wouldn't be, but the two most important ones are the variances for the parking in the front yard and I guess that quirky part of the code. You're right, where I need they need more habitable space for a dwelling unit. Starting with the parking in the front yard, I mean, currently you can see the configuration of the lot. There are 4 spots in the back, and the idea is to turn this into a multifamily, which I realize requires a conditional use permit as well. But as you see in some of the documents I presented, there was a table of all the lots. I think there's about 40 properties I charted up and down the street. And there are, for instances of multifamily, if not 3-family, then apartments. So the precedence for having multifamily on the street is there. And I don't believe that there's much of an impact by adding that, except for, of course, now the parking. And because of the small nature of this lot, the only real area to put the 2 spots required for a dwelling unit are in the front. If I put it in the back, you can see on the site plan here, I don't think the town would approve that really, because I can't get cars in and out properly without having to pull in and out of the street and get these cars in and out. So the best use of the property is to have these 4 spots, 2 within a frame garage, 2 over these pavers here, and then put 2 more in the front. Understanding that this is a variance required and there's some mitigation as well, the idea, and I'm going to switch over to the existing, there's a hill here, and the proposal in this picture you have is to cut that into the hillside. So the parking would come off of the driveway elevation and cut into the hill with a small retaining wall less than 4 feet high. So ultimately at about 46 inches or so, you're already up to the window of most cars. And then on top of that, we were proposing landscaping that would eventually fill in more than 18 to 24 inches high, which would cover most cars, even SUVs or minivans. So the proposal really is to have this recessed in, mitigate with the earth itself, and then mitigate even further with landscaping. I think actually that this proposal, and I don't know if you've been up and down the street specifically for this project to look, but on the opposite side of the street where the other instances of parking are, here, right here, these lots in yellow, 46 through 56, these are all right out in the street. I know one of them is the Legion, and they have parking in the front and the rear, but these are all other residential uses, and they have the parking right on the street with a couple of bushes there, but mostly the cars are all visible. The proposal really, I think, is the best option, is to hide these cars, screen them, and ideally the only place they really be visible from is either standing up in the house looking down on them, or driving down the street from the south looking at the back of them. But it is important, obviously, to get the parking in there. Plus, also, I think that not burdening the additional parking, the on-street parking in the area on Lincoln and Cedar and Maurice and all these other side streets that are currently packed at night with other parking, I think is the best option, is to try and keep everything on site.
Good.
Again, I think it's minimal impact, and I expressed that in my 5 points letter. It's minimal impact to the surrounding area. Honestly, there's a 4-foot high wall, but as you know, you go a block and a half north on Cedar, and there's a 10-foot high wall by the funeral home, and that wall is exposed. This wall is actually hidden and screened with the earth. So I think very minimal impact to the surrounding areas. I think it helps mitigate the on-street parking, and honestly, it provides a legal multifamily use for this house. And I can't say that precedence is having undocumented multifamily buildings, but I think I think there's a lot of people know that there probably are other projects along the street that are maybe not well documented. I found what I could find, and there's a good portion of them that are documented, but we're trying to do things right and get the parking and provide a much needed apartment. So if the board has any questions about that, I have other documentation, but I know you've seen it already.
So I guess I think I have a question, not so much about the parking, but about the apartment.
Sure.
Since that is totally brand new to coming before the board.
Right. You have a question you would like me to address, or do you have a specific question? I'm sorry.
Okay, so I know that Jaime and Steve, you're kind of coming in and out, but I think that there was a question about the livable space and the habitable space, both in this apartment.
I can explain that for you. In the PO district, it seems to be the only district in the code that requires for the for you to meet habitable and livable space. Most of the other sections of the code just require one or the other. The PO district, for some reason, the way it's written in the code, you have to meet, depending if it's a studio or 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, you have to meet habitable. So it's like 450 for studio. In this case, they're proposing a studio, which means they have to be 450 habitable, but the livable space says you have to have 800. So normally, if you are going to have 450 habitable square feet for a studio apartment, it's almost impossible to get to 800 livable because of the size. Otherwise, you'd have to have a lot of closets, a lot of additional space to make that happen. So, but it just seems to be a quirk in the way our code was written to have both. No other district requires that. And in this case, they meet the habitable, but they don't meet the livable, understandably, because they have to get to 800 square feet.
I don't remember if I saw the financials on this one. Was there a reason why they needed a studio?
Can you ask that again, Marlene? I don't think I understood the question.
Oh, okay. I don't remember if I saw the financials on this and if there was a reason for the studio.
So I don't know that the financials are here. It's not a use variance, so they're not required to show financial evidence that they need this area variance. It's in use variance, obviously they would have to show, financial verification that they must have this in order to make the project work. And in this instance, because it's area variance, they're not required to.
Okay,
Yeah, and the apartments in the Pure District are considered conditional. They're not, it's not listed as not permitted. They're just conditional uses.
okay,
Yeah, you could. I mean, you could have a 3-family for sure. The issue here about this is more to do with parking, than anything else.
so this would make it a three apartment building or more?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
It's currently
Yes.
a 2 being requested to become a 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's 2.
So then that,
Third.
so that does increase the number of parking spaces necessary.
Right.
I'm back if you can hear me.
2 per dwelling unit, so it would be 6 total to be.
Right, so I'm just going backwards so that, because in 2017, the request was for how many parking spaces?
The parking request was the same.
So for.
It was for 2
6
spaces in the front. The only thing that was not reviewed in 2017 was the size of the proposed apartment.
Can you
Right,
hear me? Because I wanted to speak to that. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, I dropped out.
yes, we can hear
Okay,
you.
sorry. So actually, yes, I believe, unless you can correct me, that was not part of the requirement back in 2017 when we were granted the original variances and conditional permit.
It was. No, it was. It was.
was?
I think
Okay.
that you were allowed to move forward with your application, but at the time that you had, put forward your internal drawings when you went for the building permit, you likely would have had to gone back again for
Got it.
variance for that. So this time we're
Understood.
getting it done all in one shot.
So what we've done in this case is we've also increased the square footage, as you can see. The layout of the original permit of the apartment was 450 square feet. We're proposing 550 square feet. In addition, in order to do that, we're moving some mechanical around downstairs to try and make it a larger apartment. There's a concrete shelf in there that looks like it was built in order to support the mechanical equipment, which most likely is not needed. We're going to consider chipping that away as well and make more room. We're trying to get closest to that as possible, but it's virtually impossible with that space. And yes, I guess we're asking for relief from that. The other apartments existing in the area, I don't believe are out of character with what we're proposing. We'd be looking at 550, maybe closer to 600 square feet. Still just a studio apartment, but we're trying to get as close as possible to that number. It's what we have to work with.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board?
Ryo and Kyle have their answers. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
do.
sorry?
Hi.
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 What is the proposed rent on this tiny studio apartment?
I honestly can't speak to that. I'm sorry. I don't know.
And that's why I asked the question about the financials, and we don't need that for this. That's why I specifically
know
asked
that,
it, so
yeah.
that it was not part.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we did not need that for this
I was just,
particular application.
you don't know. You don't know.
Okay. Kyle?
Yes, I have a few concerns. So the fact that this was approved in 2017 based on what was there and not utilized, to me doesn't matter, because we're reviewing this kind of under new codes that have come into place since 2017, but also this sets a precedent. So for example, number 46 through 52 on the same street were used as examples of locations that also had parking in the front. But if you look at Google Maps Street View, you'll notice that those locations have different, the properties are laid out differently, and they're on the downside of the hill versus these, which are up, and there's restrictions that make it so they either have no parking or parking in the front, which is different from this, which already has 4 parking spaces. We're being asked to add an additional 2 parking spaces. So I think my comments will come out in the review of the 5 conditions.
So you're saying you'd like to review the 5 conditions, or are you saying that what I've stated in the 5 conditions is not applicable because of that?
No, as one example, you just said that, for example, the apartment was going to be 550 square feet, but there's two plans here, one which has 450.
Yeah, that was an older site plan. I apologize for having that on that document, but the letter, the narrative for the zoning board and the request is for a 550 square foot apartment.
Okay.
And Kyle, just to clarify on your reference to the code changing, the code that's at question here has actually not changed since 2017.
Yeah, I've got the same questions that Kyle has too. I see there's a big garage in the back along with two covered spaces. There's no substantial opportunity to create two spaces in the rear and avoid the cutout of the hill.
There's no, they're not, well, they're not
not.
covered spaces, though. That's irrelevant. They're open spaces, but I can share that for you. As far as getting spots in there, it is not, why can't I find the document? Apologize. Here it is.
So just to be clear, and Linda, can you may want to speak to this as well. This, for the parking spaces, it was approved, it was not done. So technically we're looking at that part of it as an extension to something that was already approved. It's really not a, it's an application. What the new application is for the apartments is different from the parking.
Yeah, just to clarify it, because they allowed it to expire, you're technically reapproving it. However, without a change in conditions, if you were to deny it now on the same facts that it was approved in 2017, that could be an issue unless you can show something that's different today than the facts under which it was approved in 2017. And that's why I pointed out that the code has actually not changed.
Not changed.
The variance with respect to the parking spaces is the same exact variance. Actually, I believe that before it was not, it was going to be impervious. Now it's pervious. So there's actually less of an impact.
Right.
So if you know, in terms of looking at the parking spaces, you're really just looking to see if there's any sort of change in condition that's different from the basis upon which it was approved previously.
Linda said that's so much better than I did.
Steve, can you just
You
verify,
did a good job, Marlene.
Steve, can you just verify that the parking spaces that you're going to be creating will be using some sort of porous paver system?
I think he said that at the
He
beginning.
did say that?
He
Okay,
did
I'm
say
sorry.
that.
Yes, they are, and I can, yes, they're considered to be porous pavers, and I can go through that with Joe as well in your engineering, but there would be no increase in impervious
Right. So
for that sake. In fact, actually, the hillside right now, where water runs right onto
South Highland Avenue.
Down that hill. So it would be retained under a gravel bed that's underneath those pavers and actually help for runoff.
right. I do know that property well. It usually has an ice jam in front of it every winter.
Well, this would, yeah, right. This would help. Actually, like I said, because there's going to be a minimum of 6 to 8 inches of gravel underneath the pavers themselves that would help to retain water in, maybe a 5-10 year storm. Am I still needing to address something? I'm sorry. I know we're glitching here and I don't want to leave
No.
something unsaid. Okay.
Is there any other questions from the board? I just don't have in front of me the total variance needed for the apartment.
The apartment, I believe, is 550, or what's the livable area, Steve? I know the habitable, I think, is 550.
Well, there, if you can see the screen, I'm not sure if I'm sharing a problem. Can you see my PDF right now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so habitable, I mean, by New York State code, bathrooms are not considered habitable nor are closets. So I guess
Right,
that really.
but they do count in livable under the Austining code.
Right, so it's
Right.
550 square feet is what you see right there.
Okay.
We're trying to pick up where that void is right there, label. We're trying to pick that up as well for some additional square footage if we can do some boring tests and find out what's underneath the concrete, but hopefully make it bigger.
Okay, so Marlene, as of now, it looks like the livable square footage is 550 and the requirement is 800.
And just to make sure on the habitable space, what did you come up with your total that you put on the worksheet?
So on habitable on the worksheet.
Yeah, because you have to
Okay.
habitable, and we just want to make sure we're on the same page with this.
I have the old one in there. It was 450. That was the old layout prior to revising and trying meeting the 800 code as close as we can.
So 450 was the studio is the habitable. So you're
Was the
saying
old-
that you're going to have the 450 for habitable. You don't need a variance for that, correct?
We don't need it for the size of the apartment for habitable. I'm sorry. Mr. Martinez can speak to that because I'm not sure of that 800 code. What is the language in that? I don't want to misspeak.
So the livable is 800 square feet.
Livable. Thank
It's
you.
not NA, it's 800 square feet.
So
Habitable-
currently the
Habitable
livable,
is 450 minimum.
Right, but what you're stating is you are going to meet the 450 minimum for habitable, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
550 square feet is the livable that you're coming up with, so you need a variance for the difference between 800.
And well, no, I think what he's saying
No.
is that both the habitable and livable are I guess the same, which means that maybe the habitable, these counts on the habitable are not accurate, but he says
Habitable
that-
by code, habitable by code, building code, but you're saying it's not the same as village.
No, the
Bathrooms and closets are
habitable
counted.
habitable space by the village code includes all spaces, not including foyers, closets, bathrooms.
so is that the 550?
No, 550 is the total square footage.
Okay, so then your actual habitable number is smaller than 550.
I'd say 500.
And you would
at
have
that
to
point.
remove any square
So
footage
500.
associated
So
with the
you need a-
closet or the
Yeah.
bath.
Right.
So you need a 300 square foot variance. If you
Well,
got
for the-
500,
No, if you're
500.
saying,
Yeah.
if you're
No.
saying that.
250.
250.
Correct.
I'm
250, but if I could just point out on the same drawing that you have, I mean, the existing apartments, 845, 931, I mean, they're not, I understand the 800 is the mark, and maybe that's set because this is the PO district up and down, and I guess you know the average size of the homes along there, but I can't say that any of the apartments that may have been approved in the past and make any of those other 3-bedroom would have exceeded 800. I mean, I don't know that we're outside the realm of the norm for those other 3-family and multifamilies. But I respect that this is the code.
And Steve, just to be clear, I really just need I'm looking for the numbers because so that it's clear that what
And the
we're
language.
looking at and the numbers that we need in order to even, to talk about this
So I
correctly.
think from what he's told us, the livable is 550 square feet and the required is 800. So the variance is 250.
Okay.
Right,
the
you required
habitable
800, so the variance is
conforms.
250.
I'm glad.
Correct, because the habitable is 450.
I'm glad.
And the
we're-
habitable is 450?
keeps getting smaller.
No, it's not, Bob.
Habitable required is 450, and we
The
exceed that.
habitable required is 450. He said it's about 500. So that's.
So it's about 500. So we do not need a variance for the habitable.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
That's
not
what I
losing
wanted
a-
to be clear of.
For the livable, we need 250, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Variance.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm clear.
Thank you for that.
That's what I was trying to get to. But
appreciate that.
Bob,
Yep,
I see
understood.
Kyle's hand up and I see Olga's hand up. So Kyle,
Olga was first, you can go over.
all right, Olga.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I know that we're focusing more on the request for the apartment and not so much the parking because that was pre-approved. Before, when you were comparing to other properties, does
Yes.
it matter if it was a residential property you were comparing to? Because the Legion's not residential.
Right, I made that point. I know the region is not, the Legion is not, but then the other houses north of that, about 5 or 6 of them, I believe, are residential, and they have parking in their front yards. I can't say that, no, I can't say that 100% of them are, no. And I know there's a difference, which is why, I tried to make that point.
And my other question,
Yes.
just for clarification for me, because I'm kind of new to this whole process, is in the living space that we're going to, that they were looking to approve this variance, is
Yes.
there a restriction to how many people that's rentable to?
It's I don't know. I mean, yeah, building code. I mean, it's a studio. It would be 2 people, unless Joe, maybe you can correct me on that one. But it's 2 people.
Yeah, it's calculated out by the square footage of the sleeping area. Depending on the size of that tells you how many people could be there. That's how it's calculated from the state code. So if you determine the sleeping area is, 120 square feet of that living space, then you can have 2 people there. But that will be calculated out when he submits the building permit application. We'll figure that out, and they'll know how many they can.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that's
So I
something
guess
that,
it could be 2 to 3
would be
people.
considered. Okay.
And I just wanted to make a point. Thank you for bringing that up. Also, on my chart, and I realized I had it somewhere. If you look here, if I'm still sharing, you can see where I have the finished base documented that were AS maps and the permits. It says I've got 100 square feet. I've got 742 here at 50 South Highland. 64 is 640 square feet. 66 is 400. So there is precedence of smaller apartments that had been permitted on that street. And I purposely did that years ago to just to give some sort of an idea of where we were falling in place. It seems like majority of those, at least that were permitted, or not majority, but a good portion, 70–80% are under.
Well, the only
Okay, so
answer to that.
So,
board to be
all right,
aware-
so I want to
So-
keep this moving along. I think
okay, but wait a minute, Kyle, Kyle has his hand up. I'd like to address Kyle first.
Just a clarification, I was reading the notes from the approval in 2017. Mr. Bassini, how many parking spaces were utilized for 63 South Highland in 2017?
Yeah.
How many parking
Oh, he's,
were proposed?
No, in
Yeah.
2017, before you received the variance, did you have 2 or 4 spaces utilized in the back?
2, the same.
Okay,
this is, there is no change between
We
what he's
utilize the-
requesting
this is-
now and what he was
Site plan-
granted in
the site plan is almost
2017.
identical.
no, so
Right.
the reason I'm asking that is because on the document, it shows 4 parking spaces being utilized in the back with 2.
Thank you, Chair. That's correct.
Yes,
And
that is
the
correct.
change I'm talking about, because that was not in the last application. So in the last application, they utilized 2 spaces in the rear. And in the notes, they asked for 2 spaces in the front for a total of 4 spaces. Since that time, they're now utilizing 4 spaces in the back. So they found 2 additional spaces on the property to get them up to the 4 that they were originally granted.
Mm,
It says, so let me read you the notes so we have a clear picture here. So it says, he said there are currently two, Mr. Bassini is quoted as saying, there are currently 2 parking spaces in the back, one in the framed garage and one next to it. His proposal is for 2 additional spaces in the front yard. That's a total of 4. We're now going for a total of 6 with the addition of the apartment. So that is a change.
No, that's not a change, Kyle, because what you're reading is there is 2 spaces in the garage and 2 spaces in front of the garage, and then the 2 spaces. I hear how you're reading it, but I think you're a little off in there in the way that it was written. If you look at the pictures, there's actually 4 spaces in the back, and they were proposing 2 in the front by the drawings in 2017. So they were looking for 6, and I think he was approved for 6 in 2017.
That's how
Yeah, so these drawings that we have up here, Kyle, are from 2017. They are the
Yes.
same drawings.
Yeah, I just dropped back in again. I'm sorry, keep dropping out. I just opened up and shared now the 2017 site plan.
If
That's
you
the one
if
you
you
see on
can
the
do me
screen,
a
is it?
favor, Kyle,
Yeah.
go to page 17 of the application packet. You'll see on the lower right-hand
Nothing.
corner that even though we've just received them again, they're dated 2017, April
Mhm.
13th, 2017. So those
Nothing's
drawings,
changed.
those drawings are the old drawings. They're also the new drawings.
Got it. So the notes are incorrect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they're not written clear, because if you remember the picture of the house, there are two garages, which then in fact have two parking spaces in front of them.
I got it. It says one in the framed garage and one next to it. So I got what
That's right.
they were. written.
Okay. Yes, it was written strange, but yes. Okay, if there is nothing else from the board, I'd like a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing. Bob,
May I have a second?
Second, Mark Rechny.
And if there's no objection, the public hearing would be open by unanimous consent. Is there anyone in the public to speak on this?
Jaime, John Van Steen wants to. speak.
Yeah, his hand was raised and then lowered and now it's raised again, so. we'll
Yes,
allow-
I do
Mr.
see
John
his
Van
hand.
Steen, you can speak now. You just take yourself off mute.
Okay.
There you are.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. My name is John Van Steen. My wife Deborah is here. We live at 78 South Highland Avenue, and we have a large Victorian with a front yard that essentially we could turn into a 4-family and park all kinds of cars out in our front yard also. We were at the
George.
we were at the meeting back in 2017, opposed to the putting of parking spaces in the front yard at 63 South Highland Avenue. We were under the impression that was denied at that time, and are surprised that the board is considering it again. After all, Route 9 is one of the entrances to what should be historic Ossining. It should be a boulevard that has good looking homes and spaces around it. To take all of these homes and to take out all of the front yards and to turn those into parking lots, what differentiates us from various areas of the Bronx or Mount Vernon. Ask the question. My wife would like to ask several questions as well.
Yeah, I don't see on their drawings, I don't see where it reflects the DOT easement for Route 9.
We're not impacting.
So if you
the
go
roadway.
to,
It appears that this is too close to the road to be able to put in, and they wouldn't be able to put any retaining walls or anything, and that would be a permanent structure and not allowed within the easement.
Are you referring to the right of way?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
If you're
Yeah,
referring to the
Yeah,
right
the
of way
state,
of
the
Route
state
9,
owns
Should I
significantly
speak with that or
beyond
Beeline?
the paved road.
right, so
believe
they have
that there's
shown
an
us where they've shown where the property line is.
That's,
And
the
they-
property line is different than the easement. What happened?
So I'm not sure what question you're asking, but the property line, it's far enough back from the property line that it does not affect Route 9.
Not a question of affecting Route 9. My property line goes out to Route 9 as well, but I can't build anything.
so we have a survey.
Because-
I will mention this, ma'am. We have a survey, and the survey does not reflect any DOT right of way that extends beyond the property line.
Right.
So, barring
that's
that, we have no reason to believe that there is any extension of the right of way onto the property line.
And that's the property line. That's not the line of pavement. We know that the line of pavement is further out.
Yes.
Correct. So the curb, the walk, the steps down onto the curb, the sidewalk, all of that is in the DOT right of way. So there's a significant amount of grass that remains in front of the property until you get to the property line.
And I just want to clarify for the record again, Mr. Van Steen indicated that he thought this was previously denied. That's
was
not
not.
correct. It was previously approved.
That's correct.
It was approved previously?
Yes.
It was approved in 2017.
Oh
Absolutely.
my gosh, that is such a slippery slope. That's what you want to see for Austin.
That's what you want your village to look like?
That's,
Um,
I'm very
Okay, we're going to
disappointed.
stick to any questions that you would like to have answered. I understand the comments, but I think this has gone on for a while, and I would stick to questions at this point.
Well, I mean, he's taking a very nice looking house and essentially ripping up the front yard, putting in a parking spot when the village grants variances to pretty much whoever asked for parking spaces on the street. So why
that is a generalization that I don't think fits every property, Mr. Van Steen. So I'm going to ask do you have any other questions that you would like to,
or other comments?
No,
or other comments?
Unfortunately, needless to say, we're extraordinarily disappointed at the direction that the village is moving in with these variances.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anyone else, Jaime, to speak on this project?
Let me check. Nope. No other hands raised.
Okay. So may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Kyle.
May I have a second?
Seconded, Olga.
By unanimous, oh, wait. Olga, you're an alternate tonight. Can she vote, Linda?
No, she should not. She's an alternate right now. Sorry, Olga.
I'll second
No
Mark.
worries.
Second by Mark.
I think we should wait to see if George can vote.
Oh, I forgot, George.
George
know,
seems
George
to
is-
have disappeared, in which case, if you
Olga.
are you there, George?
All right, so Olga, I'm gonna bring you back in. just to make it
Want me to say
clear,
it
because
again?
I'm not sure. No. This is fine. I'm not sure if George is able to hear, and we lost his video. So we have a motion to close the public hearing by unanimous consent. If there is no objection, the public hearing is now closed. Public hearing is closed. Linda, I guess we should go through the,
Yep. So the first, so you want me to just read through the factors, right?
yes, are we
That's-
doing, do you want, okay, so I guess the question is, are we doing them separately, or are we doing them?
I think you can do them together. If you
Okay.
have, if there's comments that only relate to one or the other, we can kind
We
of
can-
discuss it that way.
All right.
So.
I just wanted to be clear so that the
Yep.
board knows that we're gonna take
The
this.
first is an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of an area variance.
I would say no for the apartment and yes for the parking.
I agree with
Okay.
that. But my understanding is that only the area variance is up, right? The parking is just an extension of what was already pre-approved, correct?
And I think the question would be for the parking, since this is, I'm sorry, George, I can hear you. What, I'm sorry, George?
If we can't see George, he can't be part
Okay.
of the meeting as an official board member.
Okay, so I think the issue, what I in my head, and this is what I would say for the parking, Though, Kyle, I hear what you have to say, since this was already granted, this is not outside of what was granted in 2017. So I'm not, so I think at this point, I would say that there is nothing that has changed at this for the area variance for the parking.
George, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Can you hear me?
Sort of.
Yeah, it's,
No,
Yeah.
come on, I see.
Yeah, George, we
Okay.
can't hear you, George.
George, we can't hear you or see you.
We can't see you either.
I'm here.
I know. I don't know what happened to your
Okay.
video, and your audio was spotty, so it's hard to hear you.
It looks like his internet is not doing too well, so the video automatically gets shut off.
Ah,
I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear
Yeah.
Okay,
he
George,
doesn't
for
have a
now-
good connection, so it's.
right. So we're going, George, I know you're on, but we're going to bring in Olga to sit in as in your place for now, until we can get this straightened out. I guess, Linda, we can continue.
Yes.
Yes.
you.
We're hearing
Oh, there he is.
it's not working.
I think it's
No.
frozen for him. I don't think it's, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna mute him, and I think he should move forward with this application.
Yeah. We're gonna be
Yes.
here all night otherwise.
Right.
All right.
Okay. We can continue.
We're on the next one.
Well, are we on the next one? Is everybody?
Yeah. It's fine.
So Linda, just for confirmation, we are not commenting on the parking?
No, we are commenting on the parking. Everybody has,
Yeah, I think Kyle, just if you can show something that's different from the conditions that were in place that were the basis for the
Can you hear
approval
me?
of the parking back in 2017, then yes, but otherwise
Can you hear me?
you
We can hear you, George.
you can't just
This is not outside of what we said, so I'm not, so I think
Can you
it's
hear me?
Jaime, can you
Anybody?
mute George?
say that
Nobody can hear me?
Because we're getting an echo. Thank you. Unless there's some basis for why it's different today.
Oh, well, that's, maybe I don't get as good as I used to. Okay, so you hear me.
He's muted. I'm not sure how he's talking.
I think he's also got his phone on.
Yeah, I think he called in.
Yeah,
Now I can't hear you.
I think he's also the phone
Okay.
caller on the attendees. I'm not sure. We wouldn't be
He
hearing
shouldn't be able to talk. Yeah, I have
Oh,
no
glad
idea
to
how
see
this is happening right now.
I guess
And
we're,
I don't know.
I don't either. Oh, I can shut off the video. I don't know.
Okay.
I think,
Jaime, try muting Steve, please.
Good.
yeah, Steve, can you
Okay.
mute? Yes.
Okay, he's muted now.
That's not where the problem is.
Literally.
That may
okay,
probably the
George-
problem.
George is unmuted again.
Okay.
I'm gonna mute him again.
I can you see me now?
He's
Oh.
still talking. He's muted and still talking. Okay, all right, George.
Okay.
George,
Yeah.
do me a favor, just snip,
Don't,
and then maybe if you have time, go over to Bob DeRio's house. That's probably the best bet here.
yes.
Can you hear me?
I don't think he can hear us.
Oh.
Right. Well, Okay, but I don't want to continue holding up this
Yeah.
process, so I think we're just gonna have to keep going.
Okay, so are we ready to
All
move
right.
on to the
I
next?
mean, my only option here, Marlene, is to remove him.
Yeah.
You
Go.
want to do that?
Go.
I can remove him and put him in the attendee list. That's
Okay, so
my only option here. You want to do that? I can remove him and put him in the attendee list. That's- All right.
Yeah. Because I don't think muting is working, but the distraction is taking,
Yeah, it's taking over the meeting. All right, go
okay.
ahead.
Thank you, Jaime. Okay, are we moving on to the second factor? Okay.
Yes,
The benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
No. I think this is the only solution if they want to have the apartment. The only solution is not to have an apartment.
Right, well, that's, so that you go to the language of the benefit sought. So the benefit sought is to have the apartment. So I think
Right.
the answer is you can't have the apartment without the variances.
Correct, so they need.
yes.
They need.
Agreed.
Okay. Next is the requested area variance is substantial.
It is substantial. It's a 250 square foot ask on a total of 850. That's over 25%. I would consider that substantial.
I agree with Kyle.
Yeah.
I
it's
believe it's,
It's
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
It's substantial, but I think the other factors outweigh.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Mark on this. I think it's a small studio apartment, and yes, it is substantial, but it is also built with that in mind, as it being a studio apartment.
Okay, next, the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
Yes.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking about the parking. I'm stuck on the parking. Yeah.
Okay, so, and I think with Kyle, there's two different avenues to this. Yes, the neighborhood would change slightly with the front of the house, but there's no change from the application from 2017 until now, 2022. So with that in mind, there's nothing outstanding or no changes to what was proposed in the past. As a matter of fact, the changes are better because they added a surface that would help with some of the drainage and the issues that go with that property.
Okay, fourth is the alleged fifth, the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance.
I would say it is self-created.
I agree with Olga. It's self-created, but it doesn't substantially affect our decision, I don't think.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, is there anything else, Linda, that you wanted to add? No, okay. So with that being said, I believe that and I'm gonna get this totally backwards, so you're gonna have to help me. The habitable, did I do that right?
Livable.
Livable, see, I knew I was gonna do it wrong. The livable area of 250 square feet. Area variance for the apartment by discussion of the board would be approved, and the 2 additional parking spaces that have been requested and that were approved in 2017 and requested for again today would we once again be approved. Is that the motion of the board?
Do we have
I don't hear
someone making the
anything.
motion?
Do we have someone make a motion?
So moved.
That was Mark. Is there a second? There's no second?
All right, I'll second it. Bob. Reluctantly.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
This is a roll call vote.
Yep, Kyle Beckley,
Abstain.
Bob Doreo,
Aye.
Olga Montez. You're muted, Olga.
I gotta be honest with the board, I'm torn. I mean, if I say, if I agree, it would really just be against my better judgment. The gentleman, Steve, said that they were working on ways to meet that that number, the 800 number, you know, to get closer to that number. I have to wonder if we can't wait for that, or
So I wanna mention
Jaime, can
something here quick about the abstention. Also, I just want to clarify for the board. We've gone over this before in the past, but you must get 3 votes in the
I know.
affirmative in order for it to pass. So an abstention effectively is a no.
The no vote.
Is a no vote. I was heading in a different
I
direction.
apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off on that. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
so
was gonna
think
wait
to
and see how
Olga's-
everybody else voted.
Right. I think to Olga's question, if we're granting the 250 and they make it less than that, then that's okay. They can't make it more than that, but they can actually, you know, continue to go down the avenue of trying to meet that habitable space. But right now, what they have planned is the 250. So
Yeah,
I think
you know-
that may,
It's they have 550.
If
they
this
have 550.
if this provides any sort of just comfort in that particular issue, the livable habitable issue, I do want to note that an average studio apartment is going to be around 4, 5, 600 square feet. That's just the normal size. And in
800
our
square
village,
feet is huge
the
for a
massive
studio.
you wouldn't make a studio 800 square feet, because if you had that much square footage, you'd make a 1
It would be a
bedroom
1 bedroom.
or a 2 bedroom. And so that's
I mean,
the
I'm glad
reality
you,
of that.
I'm glad you're saying that, because that was almost what I was trying to say in the beginning, the way the code reads.
Yes.
If
Yeah,
you have
no
a
one
studio
really is
apartment,
sure.
it's almost impossible to get to 800 livable.
Yeah.
It won't be
This
as,
is the only district, and it's a very small strip of land where you have to do this, right? So the other places where the 800 square foot minimum is required is in like the single family home districts or the 2-family districts, which allows you to get away with a 4 bedroom that's 800 square feet, which is problematic in its own right. But that's where those livable space requirements exist. So
It's really a quirk of the code, and it's an almost impossible to meet requirement for a studio apartment.
Right.
Sorry, Kyle, you had a question?
I'm conflicted with that response, because the large development we've been talking about for over half a year, we specifically made them get rid of apartments to increase their size above 650 or whatever it was. So I know that's a new building, and we're talking about.
That's habitable.
yeah,
But that's habitable.
habitable,
That's
and it was not an
habitable,
appeal.
not livable.
Is a different district, so wasn't held to that 800 square foot requirement.
Right.
It could
And that's,
not meet
and
this
It's held to the
requirement either.
lower requirement.
Yeah, it's-
actually, in those districts where you have habitable, if the minimum, say for 1 bedroom is 600, your livable space will come close to 800 anyway. Because you're calculating like 600 habitable space, and that would include the bathrooms, the closets, the hallways. So when you put that all in, you essentially have an apartment that's 750 to 800 square feet.
But
Right.
just to clarify, Kyle, that was a habitable square footage requirement. There was no livable.
livable.
This requirement did not apply to that property.
I understand.
It wouldn't. Those apartments wouldn't meet 800 square feet livable either.
No.
No, they wouldn't.
Okay, I appreciate the
Okay, so-
clarifications. I really, really do. I'm gonna oppose.
Okay. I guess Mark,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Linda.
That's
Aye,
okay.
and-
Mark said aye. And Marlene Cheatham?
I'm gonna say aye.
Okay. Bob, did you already vote?
Bob voted
Aye,
Aye.
he voted aye, yeah.
Reluctantly, but
I think he had a sigh before he said it, but it was an aye.
So it
It was an aye.
passes 3-1 and 1.
yes,
So it passed.
it passed. Okay, Mr. Steve, thank you. Have a great night.
That one passed like a kidney stone, though.
I appreciate your time and have a great evening. Thank you very much for all.
Okay, we are on to, am I missing something? ZBA 2119, Birch Brook Manor.
Yep. Bringing in Dan Patrick. This is just an extension, so there's not much to bring everybody up to speed on. So I'm just going to bring them in, and he can quickly explain it.
Okay, but noted that this is a 5th extension for an area variance.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good evening. Daniel Patrick from the law firm Cuddy and Fader. Like you indicated, this is the 5th extension request for this area variance that was granted back in October 2019. Since then, we have been working through the planning board process, and we recently obtained final subdivision approval, wetland approval, and tree removal permit approval. So we are actively pursuing this development. It's just taking much more time, which we've been indicating thus far throughout the process. So we're, I'm happy to go through the plans. I know you guys have a long agenda, and it's
No change from what
been
was.
quite a while. So
No change.
exactly, no change.
No change. They did not commence construction, is I believe what the issue is, right?
Correct. We are still working through the conditions of this final subdivision approval.
Okay.
Do they need a new building permit or?
They haven't
That's
gotten
not
a
up to
building
us.
permit yet. They've been working through all the other
Yeah.
approvals.
Right.
They haven't applied for any building permits yet.
So,
We're working on it. We're getting there, but it's been a process.
They have been, very actively working with us. They did a pretty significant tree plan. So when because the project is kind of dragged on a while, when they started this project, there was no wetlands ordinance. The planning board had a different tact on the tree permit process. And so during this process, they had to come up with a wetlands mitigation plan and change their plan because of that. That took some time. They had to go to the county and get approval for their connections to sewer and water. That took some time. They had to, come up with a pretty significant tree replacement plan. That's taken some time. And so all those elements have sort of fed into the time they took along with COVID. So they are here for what is their 5th and final variance extension. But, I do want to say that they have been very good in working with the planning department to get their approvals moving over the past couple of years.
we need to go through the steps again, Marlene, or can we just do a motion to?
No, there's a motion to grant
It's
the
just an
extension.
extension. You don't need to go through the steps again.
Motion to grant the extension.
Do we need to open a public hearing on this, Linda?
You don't, but if you want to see if there's actually anybody. I don't know, do you routinely, Jaime, do you routinely open public hearings on extensions?
I think we have offered it up in the past, if I recall, but.
Okay, so.
I don't know, did we notice this meeting, Jamie, was this meeting noticed for an extension?
I withdraw my motion.
Did they send neighbor notices? No,
Yeah.
they weren't required to for.
Yeah,
extension.
so, I mean, the likelihood that you don't have to do it and the neighbors
don't
don't know
have
to
to.
here, so.
Okay,
So
so
Bob, you don't
there
have
is,
to withdraw your motion.
right, so there is a motion to grant this extension. May I have a
Motion to
second?
Grant the extension.
Second, Kyle.
Okay, so there's a motion
Before,
and a
excuse
second.
me, John, sorry, Chapman, before the board moves forward, Jaime, I just want to ask one question about something you said. You said that this was the final zoning board extension. Is that correct? I thought there was no limit on zoning board.
There
but
is
there's
now a
on
limit on
planning
zoning board
unfortunately.
extensions. There are
There is
two
a-
1-year zoning board extensions. So that law
Okay.
changed a
Can
few
I-
months ago. There used to be
Okay.
unlimited 6-month extensions and limits only on the planning board side. That law has however changed. The law now says that you can get 2 1-year
1 year.
extensions. So the board today can grant a 1-year zoning board extension. You're at the end of your extensions.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask if we can amend my request to be 1 year as opposed to 6 months, because we're still, so that it's more
Right.
in line with the planning board approval.
I amend my motion to board, to grant a 1-year extension.
We will amend the motion to read that we will grant the extension with the existing zoning or updated zoning permit for extensions.
1 year.
For 1 year.
Yeah, for 1 year.
There we go.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Bob Doreo,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Mark Goresny,
Aye.
Marlene Cheatham.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a nice night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Again, this is another extension. ZBA 13/2022, 20 Main Street.
So this is
this-
not an extension, but similar to the first application, it is a previously approved project. So you're in the middle of saying something. So I apologize.
It expired, so you have to actually reapprove it.
Okay. So this is okay, I consider it an extension. Okay, but reapproval for a variance that was granted back in 2020.
Yeah, so a little background on this application. The applicants came in for multiple variances. They wanted to have variances for the parking count, parking size, and later a variance for the sign permit application. So they moved forward with they sort of commenced on the construction of the project. Those other components are already there and are not changing. But the building permit application sort of ends the requirement to extend the area variances associated with parking. It, however, did not end the requirement to extend the sign permit variance request, because they never pulled a sign permit. So, that's just sort of a quirk in how the code works here. It's amongst the only instances where that would happen. And so they're now ready to, open up, and they've got to get a sign put on the front of the property. And so they have to come back to get the sign variance done.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the applicants weren't aware of that. They thought once they pulled the building permit that, the sign variance was included in that. And that's why they delayed on taking the sign permit in the elapsed time they needed to.
And, we did look and try to see if it was possible to avoid having them come back here at all, due to the fact that they had an existing full building permit. Unfortunately, the code does not allow for that to happen here. So that's something we'd like to see fixed.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Not tonight.
We'll get yelled at by Marlene later about it.
Okay.
I already got yelled at once, so.
We need a motion, right?
Well, is there anyone here to speak on this? But actually, Jaime, can you just pull up a picture? Because I know some of the board members were not part of that board in 2020. As a matter of fact, I could count at least 4 people that were not part of that board in 2020. But I do, if you notice, the sign is actually not a facade sign that hangs out. It is actually drawn. It's like a mural drawn right on the wall. So yes, it is 166.28 square feet variance, but it is actually right on the building itself.
Yeah, and we have the applicant here, so Stacey Belmont. So they could.
Right. Hi, guys.
And,
hi.
Stacey and Dylan.
Hi.
Yes, Stacey Belmont.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Seems like not much more we need to say because I'm Andrew all, but appreciate the time.
Okay, so to the newer board members, this is actually and Stacey, you can actually scream in if I'm wrong, but I know it was a coffee house down at the end of Main Street, down by the train station. Thus the look of being inviting to the public, across from, there's like a parking area right across from the front end of their building.
Yeah, right adjacent to the municipal permitted parking lot for the train station.
Yes. Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Is there anyone from the public to speak on the, sorry. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Kyle.
If there is no objection to open the public hearing, then by unanimous consent, the public hearing is open. Is there anyone to speak on this application? If
Nobody.
there's no one to speak on this application, then may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Bob.
Is there a
Half of their
second?
neighbors are parked cars, so. No.
Is there a second?
Second, Olga.
Okay. The public hearing, by unanimous consent, the public hearing is now closed. We would have to go through the area variance once again.
Yes.
So
Yep.
Linda,
Linda,
An
I have a
undesirable
question.
change.
I'm sorry. I just have a quick question for expediency. Is it possible that they could, approve it based off of the same criteria that was used in the previous approval without going through
Sure,
it
I
again?
mean, you have a copy of the old resolution in the materials, in the backup materials.
mhm.
So unless somebody has any different reasons relating to any of the 5 factors, you could make a motion to have a motion to approve the requested variance based on the same provisions set forth in the prior approval.
Okay. May I have a motion?
Yes. Motion to approve with the understanding that there are no changes from the prior resolution that was approved.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second Mark Rushing.
Roll call vote.
Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Bob Doreo,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Mark Gorezny,
Aye.
Marlene Cheatham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion
Good.
carries. Yes. Thank you.
Moving right along.
Yes, I don't know what, okay, so have a good day and I look forward to seeing a mural.
All right, thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
I wanna go.
ZBA 09-2022, 68 South Highland Avenue. Fatdom Realty?
Yeah, Fatdom.
Fatdom, okay.
All right, so this property is an existing fuel company. I think they sell Palisade fuel. They have a apartment on the top floor. And so the property has a small little parking area in the back that accommodates 4 legal parking spots. The requirement for the property in order to legalize what's going on site is to have 8. And so the request was basically either to legalize it as a 6-space parking or as a sort of grant a variance for 4 parking spaces. In discussions with staff, it seems like it makes most sense to just make the request a request for 4 parking spaces to be waived as a requirement. Again, they're not changing anything that's going on the property. They've been operating the way that they've been operating for some time now. But they
Right, the required parking is 8. And they can show 4 conforming.
Right.
Exactly. And so here are the plans. So I'll show you the parking. So you can see the way the parking this is a small retaining wall here, and they're showing that they have 4 spaces here. These do conform under the code. They all meet the 9 by 18 requirement. These 2 spots here are how they're currently utilized, but they're not conforming, and the gymnastics that you would have to do to get them to be conforming by using variances is probably more cumbersome than just granting the variance of 4 spaces and calling it a day. Again, the property is not increasing in size. They're not adding anything to the building. They're not changing any uses. All those uses are conforming. They just need to get this, parking issue dealt with in order to legalize the activity.
If we give them a 4 parking space variance, does that mean that these other cars that are parking there now can't park there anymore and have to go look on the street?
Yeah.
No.
So they, no, it doesn't. But
What
the
they
street
do,
parking
they
is
do.
available. Yeah.
Right.
The street parking is available to them now, and they choose to park that way because I think that they prefer to park that way. The tenant is there, obviously, and has their needs primarily in the evening. The business is there in the day and has their needs primarily in the day. So generally speaking, the tenant will have parking in the evening when they need it. And I believe it's just a 1-bedroom. The applicant can kind of clarify some of that stuff, but there is parking on street now in that district. It's not, obviously the greatest parking situation, I think, on James Street, but there is parking that's
On
available
both
to them
sides.
to use now.
On
if
both
they wanted
sides,
to.
yes.
Yeah, so.
So the only thing I'd add, Jaime, to what you had said is we had discussed that if they go with just the 4 spaces, because right now they're kind of showing 6, but they don't really work because of the spacing. But if they decide to just go with the 4, they'll be able to modify those spaces in length to make them all compliant 9 by 18.
Oh, good.
Because then they wouldn't have to worry about the cars parked to the left side of it.
Correct. They can have 4 fully conforming spaces.
Right.
And the alternative is they could, try to expand the size of the parking lot, or they could put, they could request a variance to add parking in the front of the park, which, is less than ideal.
Right.
And there is on-street parking during the day, so that is not a true issue to them parking. So are there any questions from the board?
Do you want to let the applicant?
Yeah.
Yeah, is the applicant on yet?
The applicant is here. Yep. So the applicant is here.
I was about to ask if there's, if we want to open the public hearing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So we have Ed Elliott here. Has his hand raised. Mr. Elliott?
Mr. Elliott, are you on? Can you unmute? I see you. You're not unmuted, Mr. Elliott. Hello, hello.
Okay, well, Mr. Elliott's having trouble, but if maybe you do want to just move forward with the public hearing.
Yes. Are there, again, are there any questions from the board? If there are no questions from the board, may I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Mark Rutschen.
Is there a second?
Second, Kyle.
If there's no objection from the board, then the public hearing is now open by unanimous consent. Is there anyone to speak on this issue? Jaime?
There is not.
Okay, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close, Olga.
Is there a second? I think Mark. I'm sorry, is there a second?
I'll second Mark Rutschen.
Okay, and I heard somebody speak. I'm sorry. I saw Mark was unmuted. I thought it was him. Okay. If there's no objection, then the public hearing is now closed.
Madam Chair, just a statement. Since we weren't able to speak to the applicants and there's some issues with it, when I did a referral letter, I did it on the base of what they were currently proposing, which you saw in that site plan. But if it's understood that they are going with the proposal of only the 4 spaces rather than the 6, which would require all these other variances, it's just to make sure that that's the way they are intending to decide to propose it, so you can vote on the proper variances.
Yeah, I'd like
Yes,
to
I see
get the
Mr.
applicant's concurrence.
I see Mr. Elliott is unmuted, so if he would like to speak to the fact that we are looking at 4 legal spaces and a waiver for the 4 spaces that are non-conforming. Mr. Elliott? Uh-oh.
You know, barring
I
their
see he's-
concurrence, his hand is raised.
I know, and I see him unmuted. But I don't hear him.
I mean, barring their concurrence, I think that they were comfortable doing whatever the zoning board was comfortable with. That was, the discussion in the pre-app meeting that we had with them. So I think that they had expressed comfort. I think that it's a question of the comfort of the board and the implications of your vote here. So,
Okay, Mr. Elliott, I see your hand is raised, but if we can hear you,
he seems to have the microphone, a microphone issue or something like that.
okay. So Linda, are we able to go through with?
Yeah, if he's not happy with what we do, he can come back and ask for it to be amended.
No.
Not a problem.
Or he could try to email Jaime and just confirm.
I would only suggest that if the intention is to just grant the variances for 4 spaces and eliminate the need for the other 2 variances, that they probably would have to just submit an updated worksheet to make it comply with the variances.
Yeah, I think a condition can be that he submit a revised plan
Updated one.
showing the 4 conforming spaces, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, a revised plan and just like, I don't know if when you filled out the zoning worksheet, just to make it match what you're gonna have, which should just be
correct.
Each is required 4 that they're proposing 4 for variance, and all the other variances not required.
Right, okay.
Correct.
I'm hoping Mr. Elliott was able to hear that. If he wants to put something in the chat.
That doesn't work anymore. We don't.
Oh,
yeah.
we disabled it.
We had to
Yes.
disable the chat. We had some chat abusers.
Okay.
That can get ugly.
Okay, so I can see his hand is raised, so I'm guessing he can hear what is going on, and I would ask him to follow through with making sure that those.
Mr. Elliott, if you want, like while they're going through their final deliberations here, you can call my cell phone. I'm going to give it to you very slowly here. It's 914-705-1667. 914-705-1667. So if you have any questions, you feel free to call me, and at least maybe we can convey that you are comfortable with the direction that the board is taking.
Okay. Go ahead, Linda.
So the first factor, an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
I say yes, only if those cars that are currently parked there, the 5th and 6th car, are now required to be parked on the street. Is that true? If this passes?
So honestly, they may still, if they want a tandem park, they can. But I think in terms of what you are going to permit, if you approve those spaces the way they're being used, then you would also have to give variances for aisle width and the size of the spaces and all the other things. And I think that staff felt that it would be better to have conforming spaces approved. There is only 1 residential unit, so at night there shouldn't need to be even the 4 spaces. And street parking is available during the day. I don't know if that answers your question, Kyle.
It's fine, thank you.
Yeah, the applicant said that they're fine with whatever the ZBA wants to do and that they would follow with the building department, after
Okay,
the zoning board.
okay.
So,
So,
So again, an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
I don't think so. I mean, realistically, as you said, practically it wouldn't really change how parking is being used. And I think it would just kind of, I know it's not a prior conforming use technically, but it essentially just okays what's already been going on for many, many years.
it legalizes the 4 spaces that need to be there, and the remaining cars. It is the top of James Street, so it's not fully residential. So there is parking in that area, during the day.
I agree with Mark.
I do too.
Okay, the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
Nope, that's the solution.
No, I think short of building a parking garage or putting parking in the front yard, it would be difficult to agree to anything that would be conforming at this point.
And by the way, putting it in the front yard would require a variance. So that's not.
That's correct.
Yeah, expanding the size of the parking lot would also require.
Require a variance.
Okay, see?
Okay.
So no.
3, the requested area variance is substantial.
Yeah, it's 50%. Going from 8 to 4, but I don't think that should be determinative.
Right, when you consider all the factors involved.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
I agree. Yeah.
I agree with Bob.
Okay. The proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
No change.
It's just there's no real
change.
Yeah.
There's really no change.
And the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance.
Well, yeah, it is self-made, but I don't think it's determinative.
Agreed.
Okay, I agree. Okay, in light of going through the area variances, may I have a motion to grant the area variance with the corrected paperwork submitted to the building department as noted?
Motion to grant, Olga.
May I have a second?
Second, Kyle.
Roll call?
Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Bob Dureo,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Mark Goresny,
Aye.
Marlene Cheatham.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Elliott, thank you. Have a great night. We are up to. Okay, I think I
58
lost my
Broadway.
place. Okay, thank you. I was like, where are we? ZBA 11/2022, 58 Broadway. Kasturi Mohanty. And I know I just butchered that, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kasturi. I may not be saying that right either, but yeah.
I'm not gonna try.
So the project is essentially they got an approval for BAR, the Board of Architectural Review, to put up a shed in their backyard. And so when putting up the shed, it was kind of sort of a small little flat area in their backyard that was next to a hill on one side and next to a hill on the other side. And it was originally right up at the property line, or the 5-foot setback from the property line. Due to construction conditions, the contractor sort of pivoted it on an axis and thought that they put it in the right place. After the construction was completed, they were required to get a survey done, an as-built survey to show where it was. It turned out that they did not stay clear of the 5-foot setback line. And so now the property, the shed extends over the property line. The total square footage of area that is over the property line here is it is 1.8 square feet over the, not over the property line. I want to clarify, over the setback line. 1.8 square feet over the setback line on one corner, and 3.974, essentially 4 square feet over the setback line on the other corner. And so the required setback line is 5 feet. The closest it gets is about 3 feet away from the property line, as opposed to 5 feet from the property line on one corner, and about 4 feet from the property line, as opposed to 5 feet on the other corner. And so I will briefly show you a picture of this, since I'm talking about it, and it probably would help to have something to look at while I'm saying all this stuff. But this is how it was pivoted. So originally it was supposed to be sort of in line with the way the property line is set out. And you can see they pivoted, and in pivoting it, it's crossed over the property line. And that's it.
And what was the reason for the pivoting?
The applicant, the contractor for the applicant said that there was some rock. And so the rock in the ground required that in order to build around the rock, they built the walls around this sort of rock that kind of protruded out of the ground. Sort of in order to make it work, they had to pivot it, get it out of the way. Otherwise, they would have had to break up that rock to get it out of there, which they didn't feel like they could do. I mean, it's a shed. It is a shed still. So it's not like it would be a lot of money to, you know, remove rock for a shed.
I noticed there's a 2-story basement stucco building behind it. It looks rather close. Can you look that a little bit?
Very close, yeah. It's yeah, that's the neighbor's property.
Mm-hmm.
It is very close.
Has that neighbor weighed in on how they feel about this?
That neighbor's here today. I imagine they will weigh in.
Oh, good.
I'll let that neighbor weigh in. He has not formally submitted any comments. That's it. So do you want me to bring in the applicant here? You're on mute, Marlene. I'm sorry. Marlene, you're on mute.
I'm just talking away. So the total square footage that includes both corners is like a little over 5 square feet.
Yeah, it's 5.8 square feet.
Okay. So just to let the, you know, to be clear with the board.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from the board? Is the applicant is here?
Yeah.
Can we bring the applicant on?
Yeah, come on down. We have Kasturi Mohanty, who is the owner and the architect, I believe, in this instance, of this project. And I have a Patrick Andrews, but I don't know who that is. So before I bring anybody else in, I wanted to give Kasturi. There's a Patrick Andrews with their hand up. Are they with you? Okay. Yeah, you're on mute as well, Ms. Mohanty.
Yes.
Hello, how are
Madam
you?
Chair. Thank you. Good evening. And board members, good evening. Yeah, as Mr. Martin has described very accurately, that's what happened. And I have the builder, Patrick Andrews, here, who will be able to answer some questions for us, because he was very much involved with all the constraints that we have on our property. And so can I invite him to explain?
He is
Hi,
on and he,
Kasturi.
Okay, hi, Patrick.
So, hi, Kasturi. Hi, members of the board. Jamie did a great job of explaining the issues that we had. And this was really an unintentional change where we were doing our best to work with the conditions of the property. Kasturi was very concerned that we didn't damage any of the existing trees and the old growth that's in the back property there. This is a very old house. So we were really doing our best to work with the land, work with the trees, and work with the soil conditions. And this was inadvertently placed in a way that, as Jamie mentioned, does impede over the setback line. I believe there's some images that are in the document that kind of help to show the conditions. I'm not sure if I can present or if you.
Yeah, you can go ahead and share your screen. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I can. Okay. So these are pictures that are during the construction of the property. And as you can see here, there's a large, this is an amount of dirt that's covering rock ledge. And if we were to place the shed as shown, we would really be digging into this hill. So there's a rock ledge that comes down the hill that we tried to display here. So this is the rock ledge. Here's where we're pinning into the rock. And this is really what we were trying to avoid. If we had rotated the shed any further into the hill, we would actually have to have carved an area of the hill away. And it was really just trying to work with these conditions and work with the client's budget in a way that we could achieve what they were looking for. And, you know, once again, it was really the understanding of the applicant and the excavator that this was within the setbacks. So unfortunately, here we are today, trying to explain ourselves to the board on what kind of happened, but that's the general gist of it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Are
Patrick.
there any other questions from the board?
I'm curious if the applicant spoke to the neighbor prior to building so close to their house. I mean.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of conversation. So I don't know that it's, you know, I don't know that I
think that
I should get into all the details that yes, the neighbor did speak. There is a conflict between that neighbor and this neighbor, an ongoing years-long conflict.
Okay.
Between those two neighbors.
Got it. Thank you.
And
yeah.
this, yeah, I don't know if I should get into all those details. I don't want to sort of.
I don't think we
I
should.
think the applicant
Yeah.
was trying to say something.
And I was, yeah, Miss and I know I'm going to say it wrong. Kasturi?
It's fine. It's a difficult thing to pronounce. It's Kasturi. Yeah, thank you.
Kasturi. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, we've had some issues with the property line, and we got a surveyor to mark it, but even with that, we had two surveyors not agreeing, so it became a big issue for us, yeah. So unfortunately, and now this happened, so.
Yeah, the general intent though was
You know, I've
always,
been here 20 years, and they were using some of that portion till we decided to build a storage shed. So, you know, we were hoping that because they had used that portion of the land for so many years, that they will be agreeable with it. But then, you know, we had this issue, so I can understand his position.
Okay. But that is, the shed is actually on your property line.
Yes, it is. We had the architect I work for, he made sure that we had a surveyor come mark the property line for us. It's just because of the undulating land, there's a drop from one point where the neighbor's property joins ours and to down to Broadway. It's about 40 feet plus drop. So it's very difficult to really mark it. So he just staked it.
So are you
just a challenging, yeah.
Actually, also, Madam Chair, that what Jaime showed before is actually as-built survey now.
right? So it is built,
It's not over the property line. It just doesn't meet the setback requirement.
right? Okay. So, and then the other question is, I think that on the Broadway, you're on the Broadway side that is closest to the aqueduct?
No, we're not. We are where it turns to go down the hill. So it's a corner plot, and North Malcolm hit the corner. So Broadway just turns, and we are the corner of, yeah.
Okay.
Patrick, I had a
Thank you.
question. You showed a photograph of the nearby house where the rock ledge was.
Yes.
That hillside looked like it was denuded, in other words, stripped of vegetation. Was that done as part of the shed construction, or was that like that?
That is not their property. That section that
That's
looks like it's
Okay, it was not their property.
everything like that is not their property. It's the neighbor's.
Okay.
property.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board? May I entertain a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Mark Christian.
Is there a second? Okay. If there's no objection, the public hearing is open by unanimous consent. There's no objection. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone to speak on this? And I think I see two hands raised, maybe
Three hands,
three hands.
and I expect a fourth one will be raising their hand. Yep, there it is. All right. First, we'll bring in Gino Rivera. Gino Rivera, if you could please unmute yourself.
And please give us your name and your address, please.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Liz Borrego Rivera. I'm his wife. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. We own the property at 20 Independence Place, which is directly attached to both properties in question. I'm actually very grateful that he didn't make the decision to cut into the retaining wall or the area in between the property and chose to have the setback, because that definitely protected our property from having any damage or any initial issues from the way that the slope is and the wall is. So I would say that we're very grateful that it didn't go in that direction.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rivera.
All right.
I mean, the shed is fine. It's not an eyesore. it's there, it's already done, and it's not that much of it, it's not intrusive in the area where it is. So, I understand that the property owner next door to me has issues, but I think they've had issues for a very, very long time. And I think it might be a little more personal than anything. And I think that kind of plays into what's happening right now, but the shed is there. It's not really impeding on anybody's property.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rivera. Thank you for your insight. I think the next person, Jaime.
Yep, that's Stephen Donaldson.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Donaldson. Can you give us your name and your address?
Sure. My name is Stephen Donaldson. My address is 108 Village Square, number 404 in Somers, New York, 10589. I'm here on behalf of the adjacent lot owner, Benjamin Jackson. I'm his attorney. It's already late, so I'm just going to keep it brief. Mr. Jackson retained me actually this afternoon simply to appear in the meeting this evening. He owns the lot. He owns that existing two-story basement stucco structure that's closest, I think, to the shed as built. And again, the purpose here is that he objects on the grounds based on his proximity to his property.
Okay, thank you. I guess, is Mr. Jackson going to speak as well, or did he lower his hand?
His hand is up, so I will remove Mr. Donaldson's permission to speak, and I'm going to now add Mr. Jackson, allow him to speak. Mr. Jackson, if you take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I
Mr.
just
Jackson,
did. Yeah, I just did.
Can you give us your name and your address, please?
Yeah, my name is Benjamin Jackson. My address is 330 West 28th Street, New York, New York. I own that property there. I was very surprised to hear the neighbors say that they did this in the appropriate way, which they didn't. I did not know anything about any of this. I think I have in the last meeting, which was in March of last year, is that they had built steps on my property. And we went to court about that. Not only that, but the boundaries, that's why I have Steve working with me, because the boundaries, they are over in my property. And I was trying to talk with them. They've been very difficult and very adamant about what they want, so it doesn't matter about. And I'm really surprised about, I guess, the neighbor there who spoke earlier. But, we all have our opinion, and we all have our thoughts and ideas. But, I think if she was affected by the situation of building this shed and the way it was done, they had never came and talked with me at any time, other than when if anything would happen, the Austin police would, once I come over there, the Austin police would come. And I have all of these records that, it was terrible the way this whole thing panned out for them to do this. I was on in March, and I thought everything was going to happen in the appropriate way, and it didn't happen. In fact, I talked to Jamie about it several times. I just feel that the lady who's on, I see her there, had no concern about me as a neighbor or my tenants. My tenant complained, and several times I had to go up there. But the thing is now really why I have Steve Donaldson on is because there is boundary issues, and I'm really against this variant right now, and I hope that we will not proceed with it until I get this thing squared away with the boundaries. I think that it was such a nasty kind of situation that took place. And I kind of think about, you know, years ago when I lived in Austin, I was a part of the reassessment board for taxes for 8 years. I was on the open door board. I was on OVAC for 2 years, and then I really had to come and, you know, after moving away and deal with some of these things.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, I'm going to bring you back to the issue at hand.
Yeah, okay,
I
the issue at
understand.
hand, the issue at hand. Okay, go ahead. You tell me what
So I understand that, you know, the issue, there is some that on your end, you think the issue is the property lines and where the property lines are located. The zoning board can only go by what has been submitted, and what has been submitted shows that the setback, that the issue is within the property line, but over the mandated setback that for the property. But you know, I don't want to really get into the issues between the neighbors or the longstanding problems. I'd like to kind of keep
Marlene,
to.
it's not a long standing. It's not a long standing anything. I think they've went about it inappropriately, but I have to deal with that. The thing that I'm looking at is the fact that I want this line straightened out. All right,
Okay.
my boundaries. I want to get what I need there for my property. They can have the shed. I was never really, if it was on their property and everything, never really against anything. But then, you know, all of the back and forth and stuff that went on with this, it's incredible. It was incredible. All right, so I'm just saying, I'm against it. All right, and I hope that the board will not grant this at this time until these issues are resolved. And I never really, you know, well, anyway, please, I'm just speaking to the board. I don't know whether you know, board members, I've been on boards and I pastored a church for 18 years. So I know what it is to be in a situation, and in the situation that I'm in, I have no cloud of power or anything. You reach out to try to get help, but I've gotten someone now to assist me in some sort of way, and I do come to the board for whatever lenience, whatever you can do, because you could be in a situation as I'm in. So I come to you,
I'm sorry.
asking you
Go ahead.
not to grant this, not until we take care of the situation. It's not a personal thing. It's not.
Okay, Mr. Jackson.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I understand, but
Attorney
I just want to make sure, Marlene, it was never a personal thing.
Okay,
Not for me.
I hear you totally.
Just a reminder, the board is looking only at the shed and the two small areas of minor encroachment into the setbacks. I understand there's a property line dispute that is not within this board's purview. As a matter of fact, the board has received a certified survey. So the board is within its rights to rely on the certified survey that has been submitted and to look at the variances based on that information that's before it.
Well, I think I submitted a certified board to the survey. What happened to mine? I don't understand this.
Okay, but the applicant submitted a survey and that's what we are currently, that we currently have
So
in front of
mine
us.
doesn't have any,
I only have one survey that was submitted by the applicant at this time. I think,
well, can I ask,
I'm not going to
Jamie?
get into a match with you,
No,
Mr.
no, no,
Jackson.
no, I'm not asking
I'm
for a
just
match,
gonna ask
Marlene.
that-
I'm not asking for a match. I'm just saying, Jamie, I submitted to you. I submitted to your office. All right, long time ago, well over a year ago, I submitted to your office.
That was for the planning board. That was not for the zoning board. This was never before us before to this application.
Okay,
So
well, I didn't know to
okay.
bring
And
it to you.
again, this board
Okay,
is not going to
I
resolve
got it.
We
Thank
are
you.
not here to resolve the
property line
Yeah,
dispute.
property line dispute. That is
yeah, okay. I didn't,
totally outside of our purview.
right. Can I just say something, Marlene? I didn't know that. I went to, okay, I thought that I would get some assistance to know where to go, but I never gotten that. And I thank you. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on this matter?
No. Wait, there's a Lisa
Wait.
Stifler.
Miss Stifler?
Yeah. Yes, so I'm going to allow her to talk. So Lisa Stifler, if you could take yourself off mute.
Hi, I'm Lisa Stifler O'Hanlon, and we live on 19 Independence Place, across the street from Gino and Elizabeth, and above this property in question. Kasturi's always been a very good and nice and pleasant neighbor to us. This shed has taken on a life of its own, and I find it interesting that the builder, in talking about the historic nature of this neighborhood and of her house and of our house, you know, that the idea, it's not a shed, it's like a house, it's big. And it, you know, encroachment is a matter of perception. Style is a matter of perception, but I feel like, you know, this has been pushed in ways that's kind of like, oh, it's just 2 feet, it's just 1 foot, it's just this. It's become like, it's taken away our view of the Hudson River. And that was not anything that Kasturi nor her partner ever approached us about. Signs were put in our yard about the construction, but, you know, I think in terms of being neighborly, you know, and your role, right, as this zoning board, you know, just due process, I think, is really vital here. And, you know, how things happen, you know, yes, the shed's there, right? I look at it every day. Our family looks at it every day. It's definitely affected our property value, but I wish things had been done differently. And Kasturi, I think, you know, it's just, you know, it's unfortunate because we're all neighbors, and it's
So, and I just want to be clear, Miss
you can Stifler or O'Hanlon.
O'Hanlon. I'm going to say O'Hanlon because that's what I know you by, and I was just trying to go with the right name.
It's my maiden name.
Yes. So Ed, I understand where you're coming from. I understand you totally, but I just want to make sure everyone is clear that the shed that was approved was actually approved with a different board, that they're only here because the setback for the area of the shed, which is currently there, was tilted or skewed, that it fell into the setback of the property. It was never before us for approval for the shed, you know, like the design or anything else. And I think that that's important to be noted here, that all of that took place at another board.
I guess I wanted to make the point, though, that right when the builder is talking about, well, we didn't want to affect this, so we just moved it a little bit and shifted things. I mean, those are big decisions to make. That is your purview, right? That's, you know, encroachment is something that, you know, it could be, as I said, it's there. I don't want to make a big issue of it, apart from the fact that the builder apparently made a decision on his own without, don't you ask before you actually, shift a building that has been approved in a certain place? So that's my question is kind of.
Yeah, maybe I can
So-
try to answer this question. So if you're building a shed of this nature, you have to get a Board of Architectural Review approval. That Board of Architectural Review will determine whether or not the materials being used and so on and so forth are acceptable. However, the dimensions are not at issue here. The height is not at issue. The property, I understand what you're saying, Ms. Stifler. I have visited this site numerous times before and after the construction. The building itself is about 11 feet high, sitting on top about 3 feet of concrete, putting it at about 14 or 15 feet off the ground. It's set in a sort of a hillside. So if you're standing on Broadway, it's probably 4 or 5 feet off the ground. Now, I guess it's possible that this shed is interrupting the view of somebody who's across the street. But those properties, the entry to the front of those properties is another 10 or 15 feet above the street level. And there's also trees surrounding it on, the side of the property of Miss Mohanty. So, I mean, I guess it's possible that you can see it coming out. I would have a hard time believing that it's blocking anybody's view to the Hudson River. I mean, I am not going to dispute your experience, but I have been to the property and I have seen it, and it did not interrupt my view, and I'm pretty short. So
You're welcome to come to our porch anytime and have a look, but that's not the issue at this point. I want everybody to be thoughtful, and I want us to continue to be good neighbors. And in that regard, it's kind of like when something gets moved, you ask permission and then you modify right afterward, instead of moving it and then asking permission after the fact.
Well, no, I only mean to say that there are permissions that they would have required on other types of developments. The only permission that they needed to build this was from the Board of Architectural Review, which they had and they did not change.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
If I may address Ms. Stifler, it was our understanding in the construction process and working with Kasturi and Tom, the architect, that we were still within the zoning setbacks. And that was an oversight. It was never the intention to build this in a way that would, really harm anyone else's view or do anything detrimental to any of the neighbors. And in fact, had we constructed it the way it was originally shown on plan, the only option that we would have is to raise the elevation of the shed, because it would have been built into the hill. And unfortunately, it would have damaged your view even more. And that, not to say I'm trying to make a bad situation better. We were really trying to do everything to work the shed into the property. But it was always done with the intention that we were within the setback. As you could see from the plan, the request for variance is very small. This was not this was not done in a way that was intended to hurt your property at all.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you. If there is no one else to speak on this issue.
There is one person, I don't know if you want to let them speak again, but it is one of the neighbors raised their hand again. So, okay. All right, then there's nobody else.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Mark Ritchie.
Second, Olga.
By unanimous consent, the public hearing would be closed if there's no objection. Is there any objection to closing the public hearing? Okay, then let us go through the area variance tests.
An undesirable change would be, I'm sorry.
I just wanted an area variance test for 5.8 square feet, just overall area variance.
I think the variance actually has to be for 2 feet.
Right, it's the setbacks. It's
the scale of the incursion is total at a total is.
It's two,
there's
it's
about-
2 feet on one side and 1.8 feet on the other side. So it's 18 and 20%.
Right, so what your variance is for the setback, and it's the one that's closest to that because it says that the accessory structure is 5 feet, so if the one that's closest needs a variance for 2 feet, then you're covered for all sides.
Okay, so it's actually 2 feet.
I believe.
Yeah, it's, and I want to amend what Kyle said a little bit. It's 1 foot on one side into the setback, and it's 2 feet into the setback, but it's 1.8 square feet total that's encouraged.
Right, but the variance is the setback amount, so it's 2 feet.
It's a
3
2-foot
feet
set.
where 5 is required. It's a variance for 2 feet.
Right.
It's a variance for 2 feet. Okay, so just to be clear so that we're all on the same page. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, Linda.
It's okay. An undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
I'm going to say yes, and I know that the original shed as approved was not under our purview, but because it dips now into our purview on those corners, it's 4 feet away from the deck as that property owner's stairs as listed. So both property owners in that area have indicated that it was an issue. So I'm inclined to say yes.
I agree with Kyle.
I do as well.
So let's just remember that the proximity of the neighbor's house to the property line is non-conforming. So you shouldn't be punishing this property owner because the neighbor's house is not conforming. So you should be looking at it in the context of the distance to the property line, not necessarily the distance to the
neighbors
improvement on the adjacent property.
With a shed this size, 5 feet, in my opinion, is way too close to begin with, but it's within code. So it definitely changes the character of the neighborhood being so close to the property line. Because a 5-foot easement on a property this size, although legal in Austining code, again, perception, that's still a big structure next to 5 feet from someone's property line with a building right there. So even
you think the difference between it being 5 feet and 3 feet it has an impact? That's what you're really looking at.
Yes.
Right. So we're looking at
the impact of the variance, which is that 2 feet.
We have a purview over. So yes, the 2 additional feet out of 5 makes a difference.
Okay, but remember, Kyle, it is only one corner of the actual structure, not the whole building.
Yes, I'm aware.
Okay. Are there any other comments? I think in looking at the property itself and the topography of the properties, including the adjoining properties, and again, there are structures that are non-conforming, and that I think I'm not going to take that into effect, but I think overall it is not a large setback that is looked at. It's 2 feet total. And I don't think, again, I do hear the neighbors saying that there may be some view issues, but that was not part of our purview.
The view issues would likely not be any different if it was shifted, if that 5.8 square feet didn't encroach.
Yeah, and I want to give you all a little context as to what's going on here. You see, this is the house that has the shed behind it. This is the neighbor's house that has the shed right next to it. And I can't go down this street because Google never decided to go down that street to take pictures. So this is as close as I can get. But you can see the hill. This is the hill where the houses exist. And this is one of the other neighbors that spoke earlier, the one that's sort of in between. That gives you a little context as to the neighborhood. This is a T-zone as well. So the T-zone is a 2-family zone, which, is like a third of the village is a T-zone. So there's a lot of different types of circumstances in how the T-zone works. This house, Ms. Mohanty's house, actually is a little different in that most of it's a very large lot, and most of it is, hillside forest essentially. And so they didn't mention it here, and I don't mean to be helping them, but you know, they didn't want to put a shed here in the hillside where the trees are, which is why they decided to put it there. That's something that came up in the original approval, because we did ask them. We said, well, you know, it's awfully close to the property line during the planning board process, and you know, this was the risk that they ran by, you know, requesting to put it so close to the property line. So.
Thank you. Okay, Linda.
Any other comments on that one? Okay, the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
I don't think it can, besides, you know, moving that, or, you know, having to change that rock ledge formation, or, you know, moving that entire shed right now at this point.
I would agree with Mark, and I also I think it would have been a different issue had they decided to clear cut trees to put up a shed on that corner. I don't think that would have been a better choice.
I agree with Marlene.
Okay.
Okay. The requested area variance is substantial.
I don't think it is. That's my opinion. I don't think it is. You know, there are two corners that are a couple feet, and no, I don't think it's substantial.
With one corner being 25% in, or 20% at most, I don't think it's substantial.
No, I don't believe it's substantial as well.
Okay, the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
And I think I think in my head, I think they try to work within the conditions of the property to the best of their ability.
I agree.
Then last, the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance.
And I'm going to say it was self-created with the help of the change in the original proposed placement, but I don't know if it's determinative at this juncture.
I agree with Marlene.
I agree as well.
Okay, I think with that being said, Linda, I believe it's approved.
You didn't vote.
Oh, okay.
So again, you balance all of the factors and you balance the overall benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the community.
Okay,
And
so
is there a motion?
is there a motion? And again, it is.
Is there a motion
overall,
to grant? Yeah.
So
yes.
move. I'll move. Mark Christian.
Is there a second? Hello, is there a second?
There's no second. So somebody
There's
has
no
to
second.
Okay. Is there a motion to deny?
Hello?
This is tough. It's tough for two reasons. And the reason we're not seconding, I don't want to speak for other people, but is that we are setting a bad precedence, in my opinion, by saying, oh, we didn't mean to make the change, but we did make the change. And although there's neighbors who aren't happy for their own reasons, we're going to let it go ahead because you already built it. I think that's a bad precedent to set. On the other hand, I know that the financial considerations to the owner or people who already built the structure would be considerable to lop off corners or to move the structure. And so that's why I'm torn. That's why I can't second either, and why I intend to abstain, because it's a bad precedent, but I don't necessarily feel like we can deny it today.
So Kyle, just a few things to that point. You're not approving it because they've already built it. You have to look
Right.
at it in terms of looking at the 5 factors, looking at the impact, weighing the benefit versus the detriment. You have to do that as if it wasn't even there.
Right.
I only responded to one of the area variance tests because I had a difference in opinion with the rest of the board members. So I specifically did not say anything. I still intend to abstain based on my.
The other thing, again, as Jaime mentioned before, an abstention is the same thing as a no vote.
A deny,
It's
right.
not really abstaining, and it's really your job as a board member to vote.
And I think that there are circumstances where, because of previous approvals, your hands are tied into how you can view this stuff. This has never come before any board for a variance.
That's what I was about to say.
You can vote it
James,
down.
right.
You can say no. You can absolutely require. For instance, I think that there was a situation where a property owner built a couple inches into the village's right of way, and the village didn't like it, so they had to go back and shave 2 inches off of it in this village in Ossining. So these things do happen, and it is the risk of the property owner if they decide to build up to the property line that if they go back for a variance, they could get denied.
But again, what you need to do is undertake that balancing.
Yeah,
of
and
the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the neighborhood or the community.
And based on the substance of what I've heard from all the board members, it seems like most of the factors were, that's substance of what we had discussed. So it would be difficult for me to see how we would say that and then vote to deny it.
Yeah. Now, I do want to say that, Kyle, if this board does decide to vote to deny it, and you don't put anything on the record as to why you're voting to deny it, then if they, file a lawsuit to have it thrown out, and you didn't mention it here, then they can say that, well, it was arbitrary and capricious because they gave no reason for why they voted it down. So if you do have a reason for voting it down, even if it's in opposition to how your other board members feel, you should say it on the record so that it's there and it's clear that it wasn't arbitrary, your vote.
I think what's happening here is that the Board of Architectural Review decision is really the one that some of our board members here are questioning, and that's over and done with.
Yeah,
that's really about the variance with it.
I mean, we shouldn't spend too much time with that, but the Board of Architectural Review has a very narrow set of circumstances that they can look at. The Board of Architectural Review really could not say anything other than you need to use these types of materials. It needs to be this. It didn't exceed any other sort of basic criteria than that. So the Board of Architectural Review couldn't have said, well, we don't want any shed there. The property owner does have the ability to put a shed there. Everybody in the village has the right to put a shed up to 15 feet high in their backyard in that part of their property. And that's a code issue.
Do they have the right to ignore the setbacks and ignore the concerns of their neighbors when they do that? And my concern isn't that the shed is bad. My concern is that there doesn't seem to be any mechanism for holding people accountable for being inconsiderate to their neighbors. I have a problem.
Okay, so
again, you need to be looking at the impacts. And if you're going to deny this, you need to deny it based upon the impacts of the variance, not the impacts of the shed, impacts of the variance.
Of the variance.
So the variance is that the two corners.
The variance, if we give these people the variance, doesn't it say that I can build whatever the hell I want, and I don't have to really take any concern from my neighbors? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
No,
And
you're looking at 5.8 square feet that are in the setback areas. You're looking at the impacts of those.
Okay, I feel like the constraints on us, and there's nothing I can do about it, but I feel like we are constrained more than we ought to be.
It's the
Because
law.
No, I
Bob.
want to,
It's-
There's no
want to,
penalty for people.
I
being
want to say, can I say
considered
this,
their
Bob?
neighbors.
Can I say this, that we've gone through the 5 factors, we walked through the process. And if you walk through the process, if there are issues that you have with going through the process, there are things that, yes, things that could have, like we asked the question, was there something else that they could have done to, and did it, the impact of 2 feet, does that really, is it substantial? And we ask those questions. So if you're going, you cannot go by what the neighbors view, like that's not in our purview. The
I get it.
purview is the area that we're looking at, and does it impact within that 5-foot setback? That's what we're looking at.
I get it. I have to vote yes on this because of the rules. But I have a problem with the rules, and I'm expressing it because I think it's important for us to say when we think
Okay,
something's not working. This is not working. So my vote will be yay, but I'm really
But
unhappy.
right now, there is no vote because I have a motion on the floor that has not been seconded.
Oh,
So
okay.
I do need a second to the motion.
Not from me.
Since we can't get a second on the motion to approve, can we make a motion to deny?
Yeah, but
So,
you better
Linda-
set forth a basis for that denial.
Sorry, I just have to voice my opinion that I think that, again, we have gone through the factors and the majority of the board has not voted, excuse me, voting is not the right word, but the substance of the conversation was in favor of granting the variance. And again, I have to stress that I think it's very difficult to tell that to somebody and then deny it based on what we have discussed. I just don't think that is also setting a precedent for the zoning board and for other people who are coming in. I understand that there are frustrations with the process. However, if we are not going to apply the process to the individual applicants, then we're also setting a precedent that is extremely negative, both for us and for every applicant coming forward in the
You're
future.
right, Mark. I'll second it regretfully.
Thank you.
So we do have a second. And again, I do understand the concerns of the board, and I think that those are issues, and I'm going to ask our land use attorney if and Jaime, that maybe we should have an executive session to discuss some of the major points with the zoning at another session. But at this point, we do have a motion on the floor. I think we should go forward with the vote.
Kyle Beckley,
Nay.
Bob DeRayo,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Nay,
excuse me,
nay,
I
Marlene.
think that was a
Sheehan?
no. I think that's a no.
It was a no.
Yeah, no.
Marlon, did you
Mark
call me or
Mark, I'm sorry, Mark Grezny
Aye.
and Marlene Cheatham.
aye?
Carries 3-2.
Okay, Mrs. Katsuri, thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, you can go now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are up to continuing business of the board. 16 Camp Woods Road. And I believe that this application is still out for the secret process. I don't remember seeing all of the documents come through. Is that correct, Jaime?
Nope. The applicant is here, and the secret process is completed. The planning board.
It's not completed.
It's not completed.
Not completed. It's getting late, and no, it's the planning board has deferred to the zoning board to be lead agency.
So as I said, we're still in the process of we're in the secret process.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'll
Okay.
make a motion to adjourn this till next month then.
No. That's
No.
You don't do that, please. That's That's not the right idea. You can start seeker today. So you can begin the seeker process. Essentially, what happened at the last meeting was you declared your intent to be lead agency. You have to go through either a 30-day process or the planning board has to affirmatively state that they do not want to be lead agency, which would allow the zoning board to formally take on lead agency in the next meeting. That's this meeting. So you can today begin the seeker process. And I think that the goal of the applicant today is to, start answering questions about anything related to seeker here. So
Okay,
apologies
so-
if I was unclear before or confusing. So my bad.
So so we did declare ourselves as the intent to be the lead agency. That has been, I believe, granted, that we are the lead agency, which means that the secret process would begin as of today.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, you
as
can
of last
begin your
week, yeah.
seeker review, your analysis of the impacts under seeker.
Okay. So as we go through that process, I do see
Why don't you let the applicants in?
we can
All
let
right.
the applicants
So,
in.
yeah, so we have Dominique Albano, John Apollonio, and Jim Nichirico. I think I said that wrong. Maybe I didn't. I'm not sure.
Amy, I think Patrick Andrews is still on panelist.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Take him out. All right. So with that, I don't know, Dominique, do you want to take over?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dominique Albano, and I'm an attorney for Zarin and Steinmetz. And as you know from last meeting, I represent the Apollonios in their use variance application. I'm here today with Jim Anacargo from Cronin Engineering, and we're going to discuss any questions you have related to SECRA and also some mitigation measures we plan to take moving on with this application. So as Jaime has mentioned, your board was deemed lead agency to carry on the seeker process. And as a reminder, the property at issue is located at 16 Camp Woods Road. It's a 1.1 acre lot presently zoned in the R75 residential district. We'll be seeking to legalize the construction yard operated by the Apollonio family owned business. And the construction yard, well, the lot also has a multifamily home in the front with 5 units and the construction yard in the rear. Just to bring this back to recollection, the construction yard has garages, storage containers, equipment, as well as construction supplies and materials for their business. But this property does not have construction activities occurring at any point in time. This property has been used since the 1970s, and there haven't been any improvements to the structures since our applicant's father purchased the property in 1978. So we're going to have Jim, if you want to discuss some measures to mitigate the impacts of the construction yard in this area.
If I could, real quick, Dominique. So we spoke a little bit over the phone, me and Dominique, last week, I believe it was, and the question came up about what to focus on today. Well, I think it makes most sense for this board. It's probably not best because the applicant hasn't really supplied any information on how they're going to mitigate stuff. I think the best thing to do is try to focus on what the actual circumstances are of the property right now and get some sense from the board today about the kinds of mitigation measures that you would like to see put on this, so the applicant has time to go and put together a plan that more accurately reflects what they plan on doing to mitigate some of what's going on there. So again, the mitigation measures here, I don't want the applicant to sort of convey that they're not doing any construction work, so there's no impacts. Rather, they have a bunch of uses that are not really allowed in that district, and so they need to come up with a plan on how they're going to segregate some of what is taking place, buffer the neighbors. They've done some work in the past, I think, to do that. They've sort of put up a gate. They've stopped any work on the other side of the wall, but they haven't formally made any changes there. They also have a residential use in the house. They have sort of kind of shared parking areas, and they haven't really explained how they plan on dealing with that in the future to segregate that out. I think they'd like to get some guidance, but I'd like if you could to go over that detail first for the board, so they can be up to speed on that, and then maybe we can get to something at the next meeting on how you plan on mitigating it.
Okay, so I was gonna share my screen so we have a visual of the site plan, and Jim could discuss some potential options for screening, and then the board could ask any questions or provide comment related to how if you have any other preferences.
Okay, do you want to share your screen? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing.
Oh, no, I'm about to.
Okay.
Apologize, hold on 1 second.
It's a subdivision sketch.
This is a
Okay, why don't you go to the site plan?
This is from the application. Okay.
We are looking at the agenda. I think
you don't see this survey?
No, you're gonna change what you're sharing, or
okay,
put it on a different screen or something. Or maybe stop sharing and start sharing again.
Yeah, I'm so
That might be
sorry.
good. Yeah. It's okay. I'm like a Zoom pro now. I do this all the time, but
I had it up thinking that's what I was looking at, and
There you go.
wasn't it? Okay.
And that's the survey. That's essentially good.
Do you have a site plan?
We do have a site plan. There was a site plan submitted.
Was it submitted
and
to us? Because I don't know if it was submitted to us.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know the two subdivision sketches were. You could show one. You could show either one of those. I mean, it has a similar. Right?
So we're not. If you haven't submitted it to the board, then you can't really show it at the meeting. You have to pull from the documents that have been submitted.
No, so we have what from the subdivision sketch. We
So
could,
so share that. If you'd like, I can share. If you'd like, I can share it.
Yeah, you can show one of those. Either one of those set sketches would do.
Okay.
Okay, so it's from the cover letter.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll share my screen. How about that? And then you just tell me where to go. Do you have a certain page? You know?
It's keep going down. Keep going. It should be the next. Yep. You could do this one, right, Jim?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I'll first explain, a little bit about the property itself and how it's viewed from the street and whatnot. So this property slopes from the street up There's about a 14-foot difference from the elevation at the street to the rear of the main house. And then from there to the back of the property, it's only about another 4-foot difference in elevation. So it's fairly flat from the rear of the house to the back of the property. And like I said, very drastic elevation change from the street to the back of the house. So when you drive by or when you walk by this property and you look at it from the street or even from the opposite side of the street, I was there today, just kind of refamiliarizing myself with the site. And you look at the house, you essentially cannot see any of the buildings that are behind this house, or any of the storage or construction equipment that's stored back there. So it is very, very well screened from the street, everything from the back of the house to the back of the property. The property line to the south, between the Apollonios property and the neighbors to the south, there is a existing wood stockade fence that's basically on top of a 4-foot or so high retaining wall. That runs from that dwelling that's to the south, the neighbor there to the south, that runs along the property line, even where it zigzags, and all the way to almost to the very back of the property. The northern property line, adjacent with the northern neighbors, that there is a chain link fence on the property line that runs from Camp Woods Road, the property line in the front, all the way to the back. And that chain link fence has privacy slats, green privacy slats in it. Again, that's about a 6-foot high fence, 4 foot maybe in some sections. So you essentially have 2 fences on each property line, north and south, that create a buffer between the neighbors. There's also vegetation along the northern property line, probably stops right about where you see just past the frame garage and where the gate is, maybe just past that. But along the southern property line, there are very mature maple trees in between the stockade fence and the retaining wall. That there's a little strip of land there, very, very small strip, but there are mature trees that create a pretty significant vegetated buffer between the properties. At the very rear of the property, that's open right now. John Apollonio plans on putting up a privacy fence. He had discussed that with the neighbor in the back. The neighbor was looking to have some trees that are just about on the property line, but I think on their property, taken down. And he was discussing doing that for them, at no charge. But he does plan on putting some sort of privacy fence back there. Also, if you're looking at the house from the street, to the left of the house, between the house itself and the property line, there are very mature evergreen trees that create another buffer from looking from the street into the property. So those stucco garages along the northern property line really are not seen at all from the street, from Camp Woods Road. So essentially, all the storage takes place in those garages, just outside of those garages, a bit beyond the gate, into the rear. There's, unilock pavers, there are, some wood planking, various construction equipment. And, during the day, there are the workers' cars that are parked here. But like Dominique mentioned, they don't perform any work here. They basically take materials from the site, store the trucks, take materials from the site to the jobs that they're working on. There are some storage. There's some rock and stone storage in the area where it says lot 2. Basically, like I said, that's a lower area, retaining walls around it. And actually right there's also a chain link fence with privacy slats almost parallel to the street that block all of that from view as well.
Can you talk a little bit, I know you've gotten some details here on sort of the edging of the property. There is obviously a multifamily house and an office on this site as well. Dominique, can you talk a little bit about that? What I don't see on this or on the survey is where the parking for those individuals are. And how, obviously you haven't demonstrated any way of attempting to sort of separate out the residential uses from the, kind of the active construction yard. I think that's something that you will have to figure out as a part of this process. Certainly as a part of SECRET to explain how you're going to fix that problem. But can you talk a little bit about how the house is being used currently and where the cars are?
Yeah, sure. So the home has 5 units. And 2 of those units, I believe, are used by family of the Apollonios, and 3 of those units are by tenants. Their parking is up when you go up the driveway. It's to the, I believe it's to the right where it would say lot 2 on what's being shown on the screen. They don't need any, we're not requesting any additional. Yeah, you could show the survey.
I apologize. I just want
It's okay.
to demonstrate there's something a little different here. So this is the survey that you submitted, and you have storage containers here and storage yard written here.
Right.
Yeah, right. There are materials stored there. Most of the parking for the tenants takes place directly behind the house.
So not where,
if not all of it.
So not where Dominique said. So
Right.
which one is it?
It's actually to the left, right?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at this to the left. That's what I meant.
So over here.
Well, no, directly behind the house, adjacent to the concrete block patio. And
So right here.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And probably just behind the patio as well.
But how many spaces, about how many cars fit there if there's 5 units in the house?
I believe there are, actually, I have a plan here that, you guys may or may not have seen. But we're showing.
It's okay if we haven't seen, these are just some of the things that need to get submitted.
There's enough room for 3 spaces directly behind that 1-story frame and adjacent to the concrete block patio.
Okay, so if you have 5 apartments just at the baseline of the code for the village, you need 10 spaces. And then you have office space as well for the active construction yard, correct? Is that in addition to those 5 units?
Can I speak?
Yeah.
All right. So tenant parking is right where, like, the house parking for tenants and for us to park is right where the concrete patio is, the block patio. And also by the stucco garage, by the zigzag on the property line. No, the other corner.
Yes.
No,
up to the right.
The stucco garage.
You got a lot of stucco garages, man.
Right there.
See that spot there?
Right there.
So that spot there fits 7 spots. It goes into the area where you see like the stone by the zigzag.
Okay.
So we got 7 spots there and 3 spots parked by the patio. That's the tenant, house parking. Office, we're a small business. The office is me. So,
do you have a physical office space there?
Yes, but
inside the house.
There's no visitors at the office. There's no, we do field work. We don't really have architects or anybody that works in our office. we do our invoicing there and get our mail there kind of thing. It's a computer, a printer.
Do you have like a dedicated room though? Or like, do you know the square footage of the dedicated area that is the office?
So it's about a 12 by 12 room.
Okay, all right.
So
So that kind of information, I mean, we're gonna need a breakdown of the utilization of the property. So we're gonna need to know the unit
Right.
sizes on the interior. I think you've submitted that stuff before, so you should have it.
Well, Jaime, just because I just want to make this clear, because the last time you said there was 4 apartments. Now you're saying 5.
was 5, yes.
It's been pre-existing 5 apartments from, I don't know, before I can remember.
Okay, if it's 5, it's 5. I'm just saying because previously you had indicated 4.
I thought it was 3, I'll be honest with you, but 5, I thought it was 3 plus the office. So I'm actually.
The office is in one of the apartments.
So I believe in my letter, I indicate 5.
So there's 5 residential units and an office room. Is that correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to make sure we get it right, because when we calculate the parking and all, at least we know what we're.
So I think that's part of what we'll need to be like a clear delineation of the number of apartments versus office space versus so that we have the exact number of parking spaces that will be needed. I also and I think this is a time that there's no clear financials to the board that were submitted that I think we, for this variance, and any environmental screenings and things that need to be changed or that will be done in light of this process, I think need to be submitted at this point. I don't know if there's, and I'm gonna kind of defer to Linda, if there's other information.
Is the board at all concerned about the traffic in and out? Do you want information on the number of trucks going in and out, the number of employees going in and out? Do you want that kind of information? Is that an area of concern?
Yeah, Linda, I think that the hours of operation, the number of trucks that are there, the noise levels, whether or not that needs to be a concern, and certainly line of sight those are my
And line of sight, yeah.
So
also, there's all these trucks that have been there for a long time in construction materials. Has any thought been put into what kind of contamination to the property needs to be mitigated?
I can offer that on the short EAF. I mean, that would pick up any spills that were on the property that had happened previously. That came up with nothing. We did get a hit for some spill, and we looked into that, and I believe there was a.
You have a phase 1 environmental?
No, we don't have a phase 1. We have.
They don't have a phase 1.
No.
Yeah, then I think that would be probably what you should provide in this instance to get a phase 1 environmental done.
Well, as I was going to say, though, 2018 there was a spill at 51 Camp Woods Road. That was the most recent one, and that's why we got a hit on the short EAF.
I think the concern is more that the fact that there's been trucks parked on the property for so many years, making sure that there's no issue. Is there ever work done on the trucks there?
I can answer that.
Something like if oil's been changed on the property, things like that, things that could result in any kind of contamination.
Mechanic work, yeah.
Most of the time we get service done at the repair shops. We'll do little things here and there, tires, lights, not much repairs done on site.
Nothing with fluids.
We're contractors, we're not repairmen,
Can I make a suggestion also? You also store materials there. It may be wise to to let the board
Sure.
know and make sort of understanding what types of materials are stored in what areas, because some types of material that are construction, which could have lye in it or other types of products in it that are stored on the property could have an impact of what seeps into the ground. So it may be wise for you to make a determination, say, this, in this particular, area or in this building, we store and what is actually stored there as part of the construction.
I think that's a good idea. I sort of outline, and this will help everybody going forward because it will outline in the approval very clearly what you can do on the site going forward. So tell us
Right.
what's being stored in each of those garages. What's being stored in the yard areas.
Yeah.
Give us
In a
kind of
letter, in a letter,
summary of
yeah.
In a
everything.
letter.
In a letter. Don't tell us now. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we need a long form EAF. This is, Linda, I'm assuming this is an unlisted action.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we're gonna need a long form EAF
Okay.
as well.
And we also, in the initial application, we did provide information related to the hours of operation that was required for the area variance. I mean, for the use variance. So that was information that was provided.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can anybody think of anything else that they want the applicant to provide information on?
I think you're all right on school children, right? Y'all don't need to.
Well, I don't know, 5 units.
I don't know. There's 5 apartments. How many, no, I'm kidding.
I think from the point of view of the applicant, though, it is important to notice that across the street, there is some commercial structures that are conducting business of various types. I think even Austin lawnmowers in right in the area too.
Yeah.
They do quite a bit of work, so,
Yeah. And I think I do want to acknowledge the long history of this project. Obviously, they've been out of compliance for a long time.
Years.
They have, however, over at least the 2 years that I've been here, they've been actively pursuing trying to resolve this issue and working. They've done everything the planning board has asked in terms of process. So,
Yeah, don't take this the wrong way. This is an effort to gather information and do this process right and have an outline for going forward to everybody's benefit.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate that. And like Jaime said, there are, and what I said in my last presentation to this board, there are multiple uses. It's not just a single family residential homes in the vicinity. That there's a gas station, a couple.
And the board all knows that. I think they've.
Yeah,
recognized
we're well aware of the area.
But you've got a lot
Just
going
my
on
job.
this.
But I think that there's a lot
going on this property, and the board just wants to have a clear understanding of what's going on the property.
Absolutely. And we could provide that to you by the next meeting.
Kyle, I'm sorry, I saw you on mute.
Oh, no, I agree. I know that this has been a long time coming, and now we're in a different version. We're more in the environmental and secret process and stuff. So we're just doing our due diligence to ask, but may I share Google Maps overview of this site real quick so people.
Yeah, let me. Yeah, go ahead.
I've got it, yeah. So I know this may not be reminiscent of the property at this moment in time, but this is your property. This is a view from satellite of the property. And so I think one of the things I'll be looking for specifically is you indicated parking in this area and 7 cars in this area, but it doesn't look like that's appropriate for parking. So just having a clear plan of where residential parking will be for the 4 units or 5 units rather.
I was there today and it's drastically different than that.
Yeah, but
good, and we want to make sure it stays drastically different.
So this is not to say, oh, your property looked like this, you're bad people. It's to say, please show us, because the current plan you gave us doesn't, where parking is going to be and how many vehicles go in those spots, the appropriate size.
And you're going to have to put that in a site plan showing the size of the spaces and so forth, because the code does.
That's correct.
You have to have certain size spaces.
I'm just trying to prevent you from having to come back again because that wasn't included. This is not,
And I just want to add here, I think it's very important that your tenants have uninterruptible access to their parking spaces. And so having parking spaces in a place that's somewhat in the middle of the yard means that you could be pulling in trucks and they're staying in the middle of the yard for one reason or another. Now they have to maneuver around you. I do think you need to find a way to move those parking spots to as close to the exit as possible and have the storage area separated sort of beyond where that parking is. You have the room to do it. You just need to maybe think about how you're going to lay it out to make it work.
Okay.
Okay, so I think,
If I could just, I'm sorry, if I could just add
ahead.
on, as much detail as you could get into, would be helpful in the process. And that's what the board here is trying to help you, is give you a list of things that we need. If there's anything else that you can think of, the more detail, the more helpful it'll be. And if you're preemptively answering our questions, like one thing I would want to know is if any of the tenants in that structure you're getting the approval for, if any of them have children, what safety gates or things are in there so that they don't accidentally get into your construction storage area, or, you know, like I said, just any detail that you can include in the material that you submit to us would be very, very helpful. That was just an example. But the more detail you get into things, the better it is for us and for the process altogether.
Give us stuff you think we might not even need.
Right. You
And
know,
I also
is
had-
there a way to keep, you know, if there are young people in the area, or, you know, can people get into the backyard, and, you know, like, are the garages locked at night? I think that those are kind of questions that, you know, kind of would help just to put it down, so that we have a sense that, you know, it's environmentally and it's safe for the neighbors. So just to, you know, on our own, like on your own. Are there any other questions from the board?
I have another question. You had mentioned that you didn't receive enough financial evidence from us based on the proposals that we had provided and our realty recommendation. What other information are you looking for?
I think that, you know, I know that you have submitted quite a bit of information. You did not present it today, and that's not necessarily part of the secret process. So I don't think you really need to worry about that today. I mean, certainly we can, I think once you have the opportunity to present that information, you know, the board can make a decision about whether what you've submitted is sufficient or not. But, you know, for today, the focus really needs to be on seeker. And once we get through that, I think it'll be a little easier to go get into the details of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in light of giving them some marching orders to move forward with the secret process, and I'm going to again defer to Linda on this one. Are we just adjourning this pending information from the applicants?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So may I have a motion to adjourn pending the information needed for the secret process?
So moved, Bob.
May I have a second?
Second, Mark Archie. Oh, sorry.
Okay. We can do this by unanimous consent. Okay. If there's no objection, then this application is adjourned to next month. And I think we're running on 4 months in a row, seeing the Apollonios. So we look forward to seeing them one more time, or again, I won't say one more time. We look forward to seeing them
definitely
again. Okay. Thank you, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. We have one adjourned matter, and that was 83 State Street. I think I'm getting tired. I can't even speak. Louis Zazingo.
Juzingo.
And I think I believe this is the property that
Yeah,
had
well,
the,
well, I'll give you the update. So
Okay.
they came back before and they had, they wanted to legalize their backyard that was full of asphalt. There was some issues with the, the plan. I think it was looking like it was going to get rejected. We asked them to kind of go back and rework the plan. Since that time, they have had to get a new surveyor, but they are working with us. They met with me and Joe about a week and a half ago. And they are trying to put together a plan that is affordable to them. They do have some options that may allow them to just withdraw their application entirely. And they are taking those under consideration right now. That would include allowing them to keep some of the parking surface back there while removing other parts of it. But
bless you.
they've been working with us, so we'll come back next month and hopefully we'll have an update for you.
Okay, so may I have a motion to adjourn this 83 State Street as well? May I have a second?
Second, Olga.
If there's no objection to adjourning this application, then, oh, I saw Linda's hand go up.
No, you didn't.
Okay. If there's no objection.
I have one.
Linda's
one
hand is
announcement.
saying, are we done?
Yeah, one announcement, quick announcement.
Wait,
Happy
we didn't finish
birthday.
we didn't finish. We didn't finish.
Oh, we didn't finish.
If there's no objection to adjourning this application, then this application will be adjourned until next month. Since there's no application, there was no objection, this application is adjourned to next month pending any changes to the application or it's coming back to be removed from our agenda. I know that there's one person still hanging out. I don't see a hand raised. So Jaime, did you have something to add or can we adjourn the
Just
meeting
want to
first?
say happy birthday to Linda, to everybody. It's
That's
Just so you know, my friends have spent the last 3 hours in my dining room celebrating my birthday without me.
Oh.
Well, then let's.
Well, I hope they saved you a
join them.
cupcake and a candle.
I heard them sing before.
What a way to spend your birthday with us here at the meeting.
I have spent
She
many a
loves us.
birthday in a meeting.
Yes, yes.
It's really
Okay.
because a friend of mine who lives in Australia is here and we haven't seen her in 2.5 years. So it was more
Oh.
visiting with her.
Let's adjourn and get you back to your party.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
correct.
going.
So may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved, Kyle.
May I have a
Seconded,
second?
Olga.
I would hazard to guess that there would be no objection to us adjourning the meeting. So if there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned. I wish everyone a great night and we will see each other in, what month is this? June.
Thank you, everyone.
Jamie,
Good
luck.
night.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Doodles.
Night.
Doodles.